On a quiet day with the same sky and the same trees, suddenly all the people on Earth seemed to have disappeared, except for him. Even the boy's parents had vanished, until at that very moment someone finally appeared carrying wings on their back. They were from an angel dressed in white garments descending from the clouds coming toward him. He asks who she is, and the angel Lita introduces herself to the boy, saying she's a messenger of God who came to Earth to find the person who had been left behind, revealing that he had been forgotten. She explains that Earth had already reached the maximum amount of experience points possible and needed to level up for the next challenge. Mana, which was an energy used for magical powers, had been made available by God for humanity from now on. Because of that, all humans except for him had been teleported to another dimension to train in the use of this new tool. And unfortunately, the boy, not having been teleported there, would be the only one in the entire world who couldn't use mana in the future, stating that since he had quite a bit of waiting time ahead, this would be the ideal moment for the boy to prepare for the future, making it even clearer that in this single day his entire life had been ruined. But a single day was nothing compared to the waiting time he had to endure in a forgotten and lonely world. The people of Earth, after many years, finally returned to Earth, and with them, monsters had also appeared that one day decided to attack the city. Coincidentally, a masked person holding a spear was also present at the location on that same date. He lets go of everything he had, keeping only the spear in his hand, watching the wolf pack advance through the city's main avenues. The boy decides to approach them from their left side, but one of the animals notices him before he gets close. He lands in the middle of the pack, and just by using the impact of his feet on the ground, several of them are thrown into the air by an explosion. People in the middle of the city caught in the crossfire wonder who that young man is, debating among themselves whether someone like that could really exist on Earth. They shout for the boy to be careful, while the wolves that had survived try to attack him from behind. But with a quick spin and a downward slash, both creatures are defeated. Another wolf takes advantage of the moment to attack from his blind spot, but he ends up being easily defeated, howling at the sky, enraged by his opponent, who only had on his face a mask that bore no expression. He returns to his combat stance, and another person appears asking how he dared to challenge him, because the boy still needed to train for another 1,000 years, before even being able to start thinking about defeating him. The boy looks at the empty campus with concern. It's hard to believe there's no one around on a weekday, but as he checks the classrooms, he notices they are empty and messy. The cafeteria shows the same situation. Wandering alone through the corridors and with a certain discomfort from the solitude, he begins to reflect on the reason behind it. Maybe he's the only person at school. After so long without anyone appearing, Yoo Ilhan waits a long time for the bus but had to walk back home, believing that after a nap he'll wake up and realize it was all just a dream. On the way from campus to home, he notices the streets are just as deserted and becomes even more uneasy. He arrives at the apartment, greeting his family while hoping for some kind of normalcy. He tried calling for his mother but got no response. No relatives, not even his mother, were home. Yoo Ilhan looks at the clock in confusion. The hands still marked 2:45, but he was sure he had left school at the same time. Taking his phone from his pocket to check if there was an error, he sees that the time is still the same. To get a better sense of time, he looks out the windows and realizes it's been 2 hours since he left school and the sun hasn't moved. Yoo Ilhan thinks that all time had stopped and everyone had vanished overnight, except for him, who felt the growing isolation. A female voice replies that his thought is correct. When Yoo Ilhan looks in her direction, he notices a pair of angelic wings and a graceful, delicate outfit in light colors. As he examines the woman who had answered his terrifying thoughts of a deserted world, he sees an angelic figure, who said that all time on planet Earth had stopped, except for his not believing the figure in front of him. The boy asked who the lady was. She replies that she is exactly what he sees. But Yoo Ilhan remains skeptical about divine beings and asks if she's an intruder. This shocks her, and the angel says that by her garments he should know which she is. Still suspicious, the boy reflects on it and asks if she's a cosplayer. The woman tries to regain her composure and introduces herself as a messenger of God named Lita. Without continuing the small talk, she states the reason for her sudden visit and reveals that the young man was left behind by God. The boy is startled, thinking he wouldn't be able to go to heaven, recalling that he had been left behind in life since the first elementary school field trip, which repeated itself during the high school training retreat, and also in the daily life of university. But believing that even the heavens forget their creation is too sad for him to bear. Lita responds with a smile that all the other humans were taken to another dimension and doesn't understand the boy's suffering. Yoo Ilhan asks why no other human stayed on Earth. The angel says it's because the Earth will go through a great disaster. She details that the planet is leveling up after reaching the maximum number of experience points, enabling the use of mana. The Arctic record will make contact with Earth, and humans will become aware of how status works. The boy says the explanation is actually simple, and Lita brags that she was really good and got straight to the point. She adds that the appearance of mana brings with it monsters that can't be killed with ordinary weapons. So that humans wouldn't be exterminated by monsters, God took them to another dimension and stopped time on Earth so they could train mana. Their real bodies are kept in a safe place, and by creating avatars, they are sent to another world. That way, they can ensure that society has the minimum to fight against monsters and not be wiped out, because controlling mana is essential since the monsters can't be destroyed even by nuclear missiles. Lita says that God was truly merciful to allow everyone to learn how to use mana in another dimension. Yoo Ilhan recalls that he was forgotten and left on Earth, with no perspective of having the same knowledge as the others or how he would survive during the time was frozen, and he asks the angel to fix this mistake and send him to the rest of his species. She regrets it and informs him that the portal is already closed and comments that the boy's stealth skill is great, since even God couldn't recognize his presence, which enrages the boy as God was so stupid to forget him and stealth wasn't a valid excuse for such a serious mistake. He wishes to go to another world and learn mana like everyone else. Lita tries to persuade him with God's compassion, saying he would give him a bonus as compensation, since opening another portal wouldn't be easy, asking him to wait for humanity to return in 10 years and personally taking care of the boy's meals. For 10 long years, Yoo Ilhan will be on his own. It is suggested that he trains his body for the great disaster, but he remembers that even if he trains, he won't be able to use mana. But the woman says he needs to at least be physically strong. That doesn't cheer him up at all. And yelling, he begs to go be with the rest of the world and not be isolated from society for so long. But nothing can be done, and his decade of human isolation begins. The days pass peacefully. The most well-known tourist spots remain empty. No human except Yoo Ilhan was in that dimension. 5 long years had passed since the incident. The boy was tired during his training, but he had achieved an incredible physique during all this time. Since he had gone to the gym the entire time he was alone, it was all he could do while the others built power to defeat monsters, to also grow until the day of the great catastrophe arrives. Lita asks if he wasn't bored. After all, doing the same thing for 5 years was tiring even for her. But Yoo Ilhan says he had no choice but to prepare until the monsters arrived. His muscles developed a lot. Consequently, his strength also increased. The young man had admirable patience, since people usually can't have so much discipline in just one thing. Lita says she knew he wasn't ordinary ever since he hid from God, and the boy shouts that it wasn't his fault. The angel smiles, but he only feels relieved not to be completely alone and to have someone to talk to. She would visit him once a week to check how things were going. At his apartment, she left the meals ready for him to eat. The food that appeared every day at his mealtime was better than his mother's, so his diet became healthier and more balanced. The dishes always disappeared after lunch. In his room, he planned to study martial arts or the use of weapons, since his physique was already perfect. With no one to teach him, he did research on the internet. Fortunately, electricity and internet still worked, and he could use the videos that had been uploaded there. This happened because time had been frozen for 5 years, and Yoo Ilhan gets stressed because all his questions are answered with that. The day was always sunny like the others. The boy trained in open areas with the staff, doing his best to mimic what he saw in the videos, letting the movements flow. Lita reminded him that he had enough time, so he should pay more attention to the basic movements. He listened to her advice and tried to apply it. Another 4 years of human isolation passed. The angel suggested that he start fighting someone to evolve faster and apply what he had practiced. Yoo Ilhan is surprised by the girl's suggestion, who says he doesn't need to worry about it. But since she's an angel, he thinks more about it. He yells for her to feel the result of 9 years of solitude and resentment. To his surprise, Lita throws him far away with ease, since she was a potential star born to fight. Despite the angel's excitement, he no longer had interest in fighting her just to get beaten up. But after much insistence, he gives in and complains about not being able to even defend himself from her blows. 1 year later, he prepares for the return of humanity. The woman says that with all the physical training, he would be able to defeat low-level monsters and gradually learn to use mana. And she praises the good work the boy has done over this decade. Many things will change from now on, and Yoo Ilhan asks Lita to film me again, and she says it depends on him. There's not much time left until the great disaster. Humanity will finally return home. The boy gets nervous since he hasn't seen anyone in a long time, and finds it a shame to have to say goodbye to Lita. But finally, he will return to his usual days of life, eagerly waiting for something to happen on campus, and not understanding why everything remains silent. Even the angel is surprised and wonders what's going on. The entire place remains empty, leaving Yoo Ilhan even more frustrated for still being isolated. Lita explains that it might have been some mistake. The boy says he hates these divine errors, and asks if he has to wait more years, crying in frustration since he can only wait and see. 50 years later, people still haven't returned. The man trained in the mountains and screamed in anguish during training, throwing punches at large rocks, which shattered around him. Lita comments that he's much stronger than expected, but Yoo Ilhan remains downcast about the overall situation. The angel asks if he wants to share his problems, and the boy laments that he no longer remembers his mother's face. The girl apologizes, but he just wants to know how much longer it will take, as he's already sick of martial arts. But Lita reminds him that the great catastrophe means he can't neglect these skills because they might be useful at any moment, wondering if he has already fallen into despair. Yoo Ilhan says he knows, but will just keep reading books. The girl is happy to know that he hasn't given up on everything, surprised that he's still optimistic after everything he's been through, and adds that it's a good idea. Yoo Ilhan started reading every day, reading modern genres and textbooks, school subjects. After so much time reading, he finished an entire library. So he decided to learn other languages and travel the world, starting with China, and going through Russia and America, training in various languages, and reading all the books in the world. There were no books left that he hadn't read, making him question his next steps. Lita asks if he's not tired yet, and he says he doesn't have time for that because there are still many things he can do. She's relieved because the boy never lost faith in the return of humanity and prayed for God to bring society back before Yoo Ilhan had a mental breakdown. In a vast forest, a boar walked peacefully and was suddenly struck by a spear. After these years, he began to learn about butchery and how to craft iron tools. For now, he continued his studies in a simple way and with the easiest material. Yoo Ilhan asks if killing all the animals will prevent the monsters from appearing. But Lita explains he should only hunt what she allows, because if he hunts all the animals, the balance will be destroyed. She was about to say something about the monsters and stopped immediately. Yoo Ilhan asks what she was talking about, and she says she doesn't intend to let him know. But in any case, if he doesn't use mana, he can simply become a butcher. The angel says he really is interesting because he can learn many things without failing. It had been 274 years since Yoo Ilhan began preparing for the future. The boy celebrates the achievements of his learning. Lita says he is very different from other humans and truly amazing. When they travel the world and approach the sea, the boy decides to fulfill his final goal to learn about butchery, which was to cut a whale of the sperm whale species. But the angel didn't want to allow it since they were endangered species and therefore forbidden to be hunted. But he wanted her to let it slide this time, and joked for her to call him Ishmael, a famous reference to Moby Dick. 300 years later, he completed his studies as a butcher and spent more time learning the necessary skills of a blacksmith. In theory, it was easy to learn something new just from textbooks, but in reality, it was very different. While crafting his weapon, his hands slipped, causing the durability of the weapon to be damaged and reset to zero. His hands weren't good for the job. It took him 5 years to make his first weapon that wouldn't break. But even with so much time, effort, and dedication, the result was still not as satisfactory as he had hoped. The little angel took the weapon from his hand and mocked him, saying he wouldn't even be able to cut a radish with it. She saw that sword as a commemorative item and teased him, saying it was a celebration for not having disappeared from the world with the others. She admired the work he had done and smiled with satisfaction. Afterward, he tried to make all kinds of weapons in the world, long swords, axes, hammers, and more. 5 more years passed again. He looked at a small sword he had just finished, but he kept trying until he was satisfied with the result, and only managed to make a weapon that fully satisfied him 100 years later. Lita said it was the best weapon she had ever seen in the world, and they talked about the new materials that would appear after the great catastrophe, meaning he would need to make new weapons. He laughed, satisfied with the situation, knowing he would be able to do it after so much study and practice. The little angel was very proud of him for never giving up. After acquiring those skills, he went back to training martial arts, but this time he didn't count the years going by. Lita noticed that he continued his progress without getting bored, but she's still worried about it, because after 1,000 years, he would soon reach his limit, and she didn't know what she would have to do when that moment came, trying to find something he still didn't know how to do so he could learn. Maybe she would have to expose him to sexual relations, but she quickly dismissed those thoughts because she couldn't think of such vulgar things since she was an angel. But since her mission was to help Yoo Ilhan, maybe she would have to do something similar. The boy noticed the angel's agitation, who seemed embarrassed and was flailing her arms desperately, and asked her what she was doing. Lita didn't know how to bring up the topic and decided to bring their faces closer while the boy tried to ask her something. She got nervous just thinking that he had discovered her thoughts, but he only commented that his sword had been shaking for a while. When she looked, she wondered why that was happening. Before she could get an answer, the sword flew from its place. Lita tried to recover it. After all, it was the first sword Yoo Ilhan had made for her. Yoo Ilhan grew worried about his partner, but something else caught his attention, making him look around in surprise. Suddenly, he was wearing the clothes he had on when time on Earth stopped and finally realized what was happening. Everything was returning to the day when time stopped on Earth. Lita begged God not to take the sword that Yoo Ilhan had given her. When she looked back, she saw that the great cataclysm was already happening. Yoo Ilhan began to panic as his body flew, trying to understand the situation. He thought he was able to fly. Lita said that it wasn't supposed to happen like this. She was upset for not having had the chance to say goodbye to Yoo Ilhan. She promised to keep his gift with care, only able to accept the situation, and wondered when she would see the boy she spent 1,000 years with again. She shouted playfully that in the end they didn't even get to kiss. The man asked if this was how they were going to part. Abruptly and without a final goodbye, he recalled the days when they had met. Maybe if he managed to get very high rank, he could see Lita again. They were both sad about this farewell. The day remained calm and sunny. On the streets and sidewalks, some particles began to become visible. People were returning to the day when the Earth stopped time, exactly to the place where they were during the event. Everyone was excited to return to their lives. Soon the campus was crowded again, and Yoo Ilhan was in the middle of the crowd. When he opened his eyes, he could hardly believe what he saw. All of his attributes except for mana were high, and his stealth skill was at the maximum level. Seeing that status bar, he realized that the Great Cataclysm had arrived, and as a bonus for being left behind, every time he leveled up, he would gain 5 status points. People were saying that 10 years had passed, making him realize that time the other dimension was different. People were complaining that their stats had returned to their original state, and said it was a shame, since they had worked so hard to gain stats in the other dimension. The boy said it was very strange that no one reacted to him. Even though they were all around him, it was as if they couldn't even see him. When he looked again at the status bar, he noticed it was probably because his stealth skill was at the maximum level, and he became frustrated for not being able to change the skills he wanted, not knowing how to turn off that skill. It was as if he was doomed to be alone and live forever separated from others. He no longer cared and just decided to go home. But he heard the conversations of others about the return, and felt a bit of joy seeing people talking again after so long. He finally got to see the sunset from his apartment. When he entered the house, he heard his mother's voice. He was surprised since it had been so long, but his mother was right in front of him. He finally saw the face of the woman he had forgotten for so long. They both cried with happiness during the reunion. All the good memories with her gradually returned for him. It was a magnificent moment. He had even become unaccustomed to the smell of food being cooked and the noise the stove made. Even his father was back to reading the news at the dinner table, who lamented the lack of news about Hezia. The boy's mother mentioned she was in a place called Yamen with other girls from the neighborhood. With the conversations about the other dimension, Yoo Ilhan felt incapable of participating in the talk. When his mother asked where he had been, he recalled all the moments he spent alone on Earth, training and getting stronger. He judged it was better to hide that he stayed alone on Earth for 1,000 years to avoid worrying them, and decided to just say he had been in a nameless place. The young man's parents commented that mana was very hard to learn and that they should have chosen only young and strong people. Yoo Ilhan explained that if they had done that, the balance of the world would have been affected and the heavens had no choice, even knowing it was inefficient. His parents looked confused, not understanding what he was talking about to mislead them. He said it was just what he thought about it. Then he decided to keep his knowledge hidden to avoid raising any suspicion. His mother kept asking how things had gone for him, and added that if someone was good at using mana, they could earn a lot of money. His father added that since the use of mana was rare, it really did bring a lot of money, making it sound strangely like a gamer conversation. The boy lowered his chopsticks, trying to get his parents' attention, and said he had an announcement to make. He revealed that he could not use mana. For a moment, they seemed shocked, but his mother just said he would have to keep focusing on his studies, and his father said it might be due to genetics, since he was bad at using mana. The conversation continued to flow since they accepted it easily. He was happy that peace had returned to his home, but in his room he saw something strange. One of his weapons, which should have disappeared with everything else, was still there. Maybe it was because Lita had done everything she could to make sure his sword hadn't disappeared either. It was good that Yoo Ilhan still had it, since he could just use it to fight monsters and look for new weapons. When he touched it, another status window appeared, showing the attack power, durability, and a brief description of the weapon. Its attack power was 800, but he couldn't tell if that was a lot or a little since he had no idea how many health points the monsters had. So he went on the internet to gather information. There were several new posts, and he was happy to read something new since he had already read all the books in the world. People shared various pieces of information online about the decade they were away, and he first searched for information on the leveling up process. Apparently, a normal person can fight monsters of level 5, and you need to be at least level 7 to be selected as a low-rank soldier. When you reach level 10, you can choose classes like swords and bows, and upon reaching a level higher than 50, you were considered strong and could move on to the second class. The third class was only possible after level 100, which would be a precious resource for countries, but there were still no comments about the conditions to reach class 4. Some users said that higher level monsters like dragons could be defeated by class 4 or 5. He managed to acquire all the information he could and would ask more questions tomorrow when he went to school. It had been a long time since he went to school. Sometimes he felt as if the normal world hadn't been as affected as he was, even though he missed Lita. An unfamiliar voice commented that Lita would be happy to hear what he had just said, surprising Yoo Ilhan, who looked back, searching for someone's presence. In front of him was he being sent from the heavens to help him use mana. Just like what happened with Lita, he assumed it was an intruder, causing a feeling of deja vu. The girl pouted at his comment and said she wasn't an intruder. The boy noticed the pair of wings similar to Lita's. The angel introduced herself as Eartha. Once again, he was shocked to see a divine being. That was the second angel he had met. Eartha said that mastering mana was very difficult, and that she had also gone through rigorous 10-year training in another world to learn. Yoo Ilhan lamented that God hadn't done the same for him. The angel explained that this was why she was there, because someone had asked her for help several times and said it wasn't fair to leave him behind when all he did was train. They asked for an angel's help so he could learn mana in a short time. Yoo Ilhan quickly recognized that the one who had asked that was Lita. He asked why Lita herself hadn't come to help him if that was the case. Eartha clarified that the higher-ups were worried that the relationship between angels and humans would become too close. Even though he understood the reason, he still wished to see his companion again, missing her kindness. However, there was something that didn't match the angel's account. Eartha examined Yoo Ilhan more closely, realizing that his physical level was extremely high. With that status, he wouldn't need help from angels. The angel remembered how Lita desperately begged someone to help him because he had been left alone for 100 years and didn't learn to use mana. Describing him as a weak human and looking like an abandoned puppy, she felt that she had been tricked by an angel who was supposed to be innocent. But since there was no other choice, she decided to finish the mission. She assured him that she would help him master mana as efficiently as possible. That left him confused, and he questioned how that would be done. The small angel jumped onto the boy's head and explained that since she was a superior being, simple proximity would activate the latent mana in him, increasing his learning speed by 10 times. Lita couldn't help him before because the Great Cataclysm hadn't happened yet and the Earth still didn't have mana. And according to the new angel's calculations, 1 year would be enough for him to learn what he needed. Frustrated, Yoo Ilhan asked if Eartha would stay on his head the entire time. The angel replied that a spell would ensure no one would notice her presence, but he was more worried about his privacy, questioning how he would take a bath or handle his needs in peace, and said that besides those problems, there was something else. He also complained that with her presence all the time, he wouldn't be able to watch his internet treasures. Eartha understood the situation and said she didn't care about the activities inferior beings did. Intrigued, the boy asked if she could read minds. In response, the girl said she really didn't care he danced Zumba, breakdance, or played dance games, but he cared. They started a discussion about boundaries, but the angel kept saying she didn't care what his race did. He missed Lita, who was a much gentler angel than the new one. But he would have to give up because he was going to stay with this new angel for a year. After 1,000 years, he returned to attending classes on campus. On the way, he tried to distract himself with music in his earphones, thinking that his life was finally going to return to normal, but something bothered him. He asked if the angel really needed to stay on top of his head like that. She repeated that he didn't need to worry about it because of the spell, but he did care, and asked her to stop swinging her legs on his forehead. He wondered in his thoughts if angels only knew how to mock, but Eartha said he was mistaken. When he looked back, he saw people in military uniforms, and finally understood that life would never return to normal. The government had prepared some soldiers to attack any monsters that might appear in the future. But the boy wondered if that would really be effective since monsters wouldn't be affected by anything except mana. The weather was pleasant with a light breeze. People around him were talking to each other, but he felt invisible. He observed the stealth skill listed in his stats and wished it could be turned off. The angel said that skill wasn't so bad. The boy asked in his thoughts if it wasn't a loser's skill. People around him commented about having gained a skill, and another about having gained 2. And Yoo Ilhan asked Eartha to explain what they were talking about. She explained that they were combining small bits of mana with their battle experience to process something that could be used to attack. He tried to slowly process what that information meant. In short, even if all the skills of the people talking there were combined, it would still be less than the boy's stealth skill. And that's why she had said it wasn't a bad skill. He noticed it was very easy to hear others' conversations because of the skill he possessed. No one noticed him even if he stared at them the entire time, so he decided to use it to gather information. People mentioned an empress. They said that the empress who was famous in Landparth was from their university. No one knew who she was, but they would probably find out when the monsters appeared. He imagined that it was a student from the university who showed her talents in the other dimensions world and used the nickname Empress. 2 students wondered when a dungeon would appear, but also lamented that they wouldn't be able to go there because of level restrictions. He asked the angel what a dungeon was. She said it was a trap. It was created by God to attract monsters. First, he lured them with food, and then blocked the exit so they would be trapped. But unlike monsters, humans could enter and leave freely depending on their level. The young man wondered why they couldn't just keep the monsters in there forever. Eartha explained that dungeons stopped appearing after a certain amount of time. Additionally, some monsters were clever and smart enough not to fall into traps, break them, or even create their own dungeons and disguises. An older man entered the room and prepared to take attendance. He commented that young people needed to adjust to the changes in society. The UN had already lifted the ban on the free use of mana and the regulations on leveling up. China and other powerful nations were already focused on monsters and the places that would change as a result of mana. Depending on how Korea acted, some jobs would disappear and others would emerge. Yoo Ilhan felt bored because he thought it was something anyone could understand and wondered if he really had to pay such an expensive tuition fee since he didn't know what a bachelor's degree would even mean in the future world. Probably degrees were no longer worth as much as knowing how to use mana unless universities changed their curriculum to adapt. Eartha said that the only efficient way to train mana was by killing monsters, but the protagonist didn't want to try anything dangerous. At the beginning of the Cataclysm, the monsters are very weak, so he should kill them during that time to increase his experience level and skill in mana. He said he knew he was still at level 1 and couldn't use mana like the others, But the angel said that with his body in such good condition, he should be able to defend himself easily against monsters up to level 25. He was surprised by that and wondered if he really had such a good physique. She sensed something and said that he could try right at that moment. He noticed all the students running in the same direction and looked to see what they were looking at. Everyone was in disbelief, staring at the window. Several monsters had already begun to appear. Everyone was shocked by the sight, and Yoo Ilhan was astonished since it was the first time he had ever seen a monster. They had a form similar to insects. Eartha said that the tutorial time was over and now humanity would have to survive on its own. The students were frightened, wondering whether they should run and questioning what the government and military were doing at that moment. Some wanted to band together and hunt the monsters, and other people were already trying but died immediately. Seeing the gravity of the situation, everyone panicked and decided to flee the place. Yoo Ilhan stayed behind, just observing without understanding anything, and lamented that he had been left alone once again. He noticed the wooden desk and said it would come in handy. Eartha asked if he planned to fight, and he said those monsters seemed weaker than a sperm whale. But the girl said they were different from animals and their outer skin was extremely tough besides having different physical abilities. Since the monster didn't seem to be above level 20, it wouldn't be a difficult opponent. He said the piece of wood he had picked up would do the job. Eartha thought his movements were really good, but he practiced an attack right there in the classroom, even scaring poor Anja. Then he decided the stick was good enough for use. Eartha praised his ability to create weapons in a short time and thought he was completely different from what Lita had made him out to be. And she commented it would be better if he had the spear he made at home. But she wondered whether, despite his ability, everyone would notice if he made a scene in the square, since deep down he wanted to stay hidden in these situations. Then the angel recommended that he use a mask. Outside, the stone statues were being easily destroyed. That was nothing compared to the strength of the monsters. Suddenly, a monster emerged from the sky to attack him. The masked man knew a lot about martial arts. He struck the monster with ease. With just one blow, he had gained 800 experience points, and all of his other levels increased, including mana. This excited the young man, who finally discovered what leveling up felt like. The statue system allowed him to take all of an opponent's future potential and records by killing them. He was happy to see that his mana had increased, even if only a little. Hertha asked why he was so excited and whether he finally understood the pleasure violence could bring. Soon, several monsters appeared behind the young man since he was in open ground. Sensing the presence of the enemies, he prepared for the attack, and commented that he had never learned to fight against a group. The angel said he just needed to use his body to his advantage. The young man ran toward one of the monsters, planning to strike it all at once, and sliced it in half. He said Lita used to say that all the time. His skills with the spear had already reached the maximum level, and the others kept increasing. Hertha told him not to relax, as the monsters could attack from above. Several monsters appeared, using their flying ability as an advantage. Yoo Ilhan tried not to let it shake him and jumped to attack them. But since there were many, it was difficult to keep up with their attacks. One of the monsters managed to slam him hard onto the ground, but its beak couldn't pierce the boy's skin. Hertha observed that with all this training, Han's skin had become stronger and couldn't be harmed by the mosquitoes. Yoo Ilhan killed the monster and said that surprised him quite a bit. His 1,000 years of training had pushed the boy's body beyond human limits. The university student continued the fight with difficulty because he was alone but struck down everyone he saw ahead. It seemed like the number of monsters only kept growing. It was also hard to keep up with their abilities, so he used the monsters' attacks to his advantage in a way that they hit each other. A larger group of monsters had arrived at the scene, leaving him completely surrounded by enemies. He thought that was something truly disgusting to witness, but joked that he hadn't expected to train so much just to become an insect exterminator. He delivered continuous strikes to defeat all the monsters in front of him and managed to raise his stats. He felt a great power coming from behind. That power was hitting the monsters around him. He wondered what it could be, and saw the masked girl was attacking and supporting him with the use of mana. She was probably hiding her identity for the same reasons as he was. Eartha told him not to lose focus because of the mage and to keep attacking the insects quickly. Both of them continued fighting with determination. The angel comments that the girl must have an absurd amount of mana power since she was using light attacks continuously. He imagines it must be the same case for him because every time he kills someone, his resistance and mana increase. Then the young man finishes off the last monster. The people around him watch in awe, thinking it was incredible. The protagonist was tired because he had barely managed to finish the fight alone. The army finally arrived, apologizing because the vehicle couldn't get over the hill that blocked the path, and they were surprised because the situation had already been resolved. Those two had taken down about 100 different types of insects. The boy asked Eartha if there was something like the 4 souls jewels inside the bodies. She said that if he dismembered the monsters, he could obtain a mana stone. He obeyed, and by cutting the bodies, he reached the maximum level in slaying and butchery. The soldiers wondered how strong the boy really was, but the mage just watched him from afar. The angel explained that the stone was a useful material for making various artifacts. And when the boy finally snapped out of his thoughts, he noticed something. Several people around him were taking pictures as if he were a celebrity. He was embarrassed because it was the first time so many people had looked at him after such a long time. But his companion reassured him, saying his identity wouldn't be revealed. The mage who had fought by his side slowly approached. and asked if he could help her with cutting out the creatures. That was the first time he and the Empress spoke. He was surprised by the interaction between them and asked how much she would give him in return. They only came to an agreement when she offered 40% of whatever she got. Then he continued the saga of dismembering the monsters to collect the mana stones. The people around them commented that it was amazing how the Empress could handle mana so easily after just one day. Some of them had strange desires to be struck by her beams of light, and Yoo Ilhan commented that she really was as strong as the rumors said. People started wondering who the young man was, and each one had a different story. To some, he had defeated the monsters with a lightsaber, to others with an axe, and to others with different weapons. He was really sad to realize that he could do anything he wanted with a mask on, and no one would remember what really happened. He kept opening the bodies to search for the mana stone and handed it over to the Empress. He told the soldiers that since he had done everything he needed, he was going to leave. But before he could go, the lieutenant interrupted and asked him to cooperate and answer a question. Before anything else, he was electrocuted. The attack came from the direction of the Empress. She watched, seeming displeased with his attitude. Her fans wondered if she was saying she'd kill anyone who got too close. Yoo Ilhan tried not to worry about those things and walked off with his bag of magic stones. But before he even left, his stealth activated and people didn't even notice he was still there with the giant sack. He tried to say he was still there, but the others said he must have run so fast their eyes couldn't see it. He thought the situation was really sad, but the angel said he really had nothing to worry about. He himself recognized that if this was what he wanted, why was he so sad? The angel didn't see it as anything major, but he really was bothered. At night, he decided to go to a park and try to make armor using only his intuition, even though it seemed complicated. He said he could at least manage to make some wrist guards and knee pads. Eartha said handling those materials was really complicated, and it would be easier to find a real expert on the subject. Yoo Ilhan replied that he was the true master of the place. The angel was really bothered by how Lita had made the boy seem completely helpless. Yoo Ilhan didn't understand her feelings and asked if she also missed Lita. She agreed in her thoughts because she wanted to hit her right at that moment. In many ways, she thought it seemed like he was cheating, and she asked if the boy really knew anything about mana crafting. He said he had no idea, but he thought it was really cool. She understood it was impossible for him to know that since he didn't know how to use mana. He excitedly asked her several times to teach him and asked if he would need a new skill or something like that. She told him to back off because he was too close and that she would teach him if he let her go. He gets embarrassed by that and apologizes. Eartha gets frustrated for not being able to understand his hidden thoughts, and she begins to explain that mana crafting uses mana crystals, which are similar to magic stones, to create artifacts that grant special powers to things like armor and weapons. He picks up Eartha like a doll and asks her to teach him. In response, he gets slapped in the face because she had already said she would teach him eventually. She added that she would have a serious talk with Lita when she returned to the heavens. The boy gets curious about it, but in reality, Eartha just wants to give Lita a good scolding. She says that to craft materials, he'll need magic stones or mana crystals with properties similar to stones. An example of that was a dragon's heart. The boy gets excited just imagining the situation. The most basic way was to place the magic stone next to him and synchronize while creating the equipment. Then he just needed to grind the magic stone and rub it onto the surface of the gear. And she finishes her explanation about the basic method, which simply boosts the gear's performance. But with the ability to handle mana for engraving, he could add special abilities as he wished. However, the method of applying that was a bit difficult, and he wouldn't be able to do it with the amount of mana he had. He thinks a little more about it and says that even so, she should explain it, because he won't know until he tries. She understands his request and begins the explanation. She says the master must hold the mana, and it wouldn't be impossible if he rapidly consumed magic stones. He could build the weapons he always dreamed of, whether they were fire or ice-based, and they could even have the ability to recover stamina. The creator's will was important in determining the equipment's ability, so both the magic stones and the mana masters needed to be of high quality. Yoo Ilhan says he won't be sure until he tries. Eartha observes that his skills were agile, and Yoo Ilhan managed to perform the procedures. The mana Eartha had injected into the stone was powerful. Watching all that power up close was impressive. He managed to enchant his armor. The angel was impressed by that because even with her help, it wasn't guaranteed that he wouldn't fail. That made Ilhan very happy. He managed to raise his mana crafting skill to level 2. He decided to test how the armor would react to a chain, and when he struck it, the chain broke completely. Everything was working as planned. Eartha thought the boy's idea of applying a blade ability to his guard was creative. From that point on, things were going to get hectic. It was truly unexpected that he managed to do that on his first try, and he'd get even busier when he created other new things. But he said he wasn't talking about that. He added that he needed to run away now that he broke the swing's chain. The angel asked him not to return right away because she was going to apply healing magic. Back at home, the news reported that the government was in the process of discovering who had killed the monsters. They already knew they were associated with some university. Meanwhile, the young man was heading to the university, but his mother stopped him and told him to stay home. The news anchor said the government expected that they were really powerful and highly skilled at using mana. Eartha observes that Yoo Ilhan's mother's ability was to worry about her son and watch all of his movements around the house. Yoo Ilhan tried to say that if he saw a monster, he would just run. While trying to reassure his mother, he heard that the government intended to create a unit with people who could deal with monsters. When he convinced the lady, he left for school. The day was sunny and calm. Yoo Ilhan had barely managed to leave the house because of his mother, and he couldn't believe her ability was just to worry about him. Eartha compared that ability to the skill of penguin mothers who detect the sound of their babies. But he was worried about the consequences of it, even though he would be disappointed if not even his mother could find him. He once again lamented his stealth abilities. Eartha asked if he had heard of the news about the creation of a unit with people of great abilities. But Yoo Ilhan quickly said he wasn't interested because he had no loyalty to work with the government and his family came first. He also felt more comfortable when he could go out freely without being tied to anything. He wanted to see the Empress again. Eartha asked if he was into her, but he said he really wasn't interested in anything like that. From the girl's expression, he could tell that it was definitely nothing like what she was thinking. The angel commented that sexual ability might decrease if physical training was too intense. He shouted, embarrassed, that he wasn't sterile, and then remembered he was on the street with several people around him. But even with him shouting, no one noticed, making him question whether stealth was a blessing or a curse. He said he thought about the subject and knew the likely reason he didn't feel attraction toward anyone. It was because of Lita. Eartha said that after spending 1,000 years with a high-ranking angel near him, if human women seemed too simple, he would be considered sterile. He tried to say that wasn't it, but quickly changed the subject, saying that the Empress's human ability was really intriguing. And he added that even after leveling up, he still couldn't use mana, which made him question her level even more. Eartha said that it was exactly because it wasn't something usual that God sent them to another world to train. Once again, he sulked for having been left behind, but she said it was entirely his own fault. She added that in terms of being special, Yoo Ilhan was far above her, because he was able to process a monster's carapace without mana. Something suddenly startled her. Yoo Ilhan asked what the problem was. She said she sensed the presence of about semi-wolf and dog monsters being led by a level 35 diamond wolf. And Yoo Ilhan was impressed by the absurd number of monsters appearing. He asked if weaker monsters weren't supposed to appear, like she had said before. The angel replied that she also found it strange when, on the second day of the Great Cataclysm, level 10 monsters already appeared in hordes. Yoo Ilhan said she seemed very calm yesterday to think that was a problem. She said she just didn't want to reveal her concerns to an inferior being. He thought Eartha was really different from Lita. Eartha was like an arrogant, rich girl who drew a clear line between the two races, and Lita seemed sillier but kind, like an older sister. He really missed her. Eartha tried to get his attention again. He tried to forget how much he missed his friend and paid attention to what was being said. And she sincerely warned him that Earth was not in its normal state and needed his help. Yoo Ilhan wondered what that meant. Things hadn't been normal since 1,000 years ago, and it was upsetting to think they could get worse. The angel decided to explain while he ran, and asked him to hurry because she was going to tell him where the monsters were. God had already teleported everyone for reasons already known, but left all the animals on Earth because he knew they would be fine without humanity. And due to an unknown error, time on Earth was greatly distorted from other dimensions, making 10 years become 1,000 years on Earth. With Lita's presence, he hadn't even realized that so much time had passed. Eartha tried to guide him in a painful way, and Yoo Ilhan asked her to use just words instead of pulling his hair. When time was paused, the animals that were supposed to survive for just 10 years ended up surviving for 1,000, which caused them to undergo a dramatic change. Before she could continue her explanation, Yoo Ilhan had already reached the monsters. Eartha summarized by saying that the monsters were much stronger than monsters from another world. Yoo Ilhan thought Earth was doomed. That's why the heavens needed Yoo Ilhan's help. They were trying to restore the Earth's natural balance and needed someone to exterminate those monsters. He didn't need to worry because he would be properly rewarded. While thinking, he observed the horde of monsters below. He added that it seemed like a very difficult and troublesome task to take on, but even knowing that he wouldn't turn down the proposal. The wolves below growled fiercely. Finally, Yoo Ilhan jumped off the building to attack them, saying it was because it was hard that he liked it. His attack made all the bodies in the area fly. The other wolves were startled by the bodies of their own kind flying and being torn apart. His stats rose rapidly, and he had already reached level 9. Eartha asked if he was some kind of pervert, because there was no reason for him to like difficult and troublesome tasks. He said that wasn't the case, and the angel said jokingly that she almost complimented him. The monsters didn't have time for nonsense and were attacking him again. Yoo Ilhan used his spear to attack fiercely. He had obtained the level 18 records of a stray dog. He liked the name even if it was just a mutt. Other people were in the middle of the monsters, asking for someone to report the attack right away. They tried to use the powers they had in the other dimension. They only remembered that they still didn't have mana in that world after failing. So they screamed for help, and Yoo Ilhan, wearing his mask, went to attack the monsters. With fierce attacks, he managed to kill the monsters with ease. One of the citizens was about to die and close his eyes, pleading for mercy. When he opened his eyes, he saw the silhouette of his savior. Yoo Ilhan had killed the monster that was about to devour him. Being kind, the boy asked if he was hurt anywhere. People recognized him as the young man from the university incident, and they called him Sungbolt, the boy who mysteriously disappeared wearing a mask. He found his nickname strange since they had just combined the name of some university with the name of the Jamaican sprinter Usain Bolt. He tried not to get distracted by that and went back to attacking the monsters while Eartha congratulated him on his new fans. During the fight, he asked what she meant by fans since he didn't care about things like that, which made the angel think he was being a little shy about it. He suddenly stopped, noticing that he was no longer leveling up, but there was a notice saying he could only go beyond level 10 if he chose a class. He was trying to understand what's happening now when the wolf howled. Suddenly, several wolves began attacking him from different positions, and they noticed that the wolves were really smarter and they should be more careful. He didn't know what to do because if he stepped back, he would lose his balance, but if he attacked, he would definitely be hit. In that case, the best option he could take was to attack. With each attack, he managed to gain more experience, but he was almost hit from behind. Fortunately, he managed to use his spear to attack and defeated the monster. He observed his surroundings, watching the enemy's next moves and prepared for the upcoming attacks, and continued destroying them one by one. The other citizens commented that he had defeated 5 monsters in an instant, but they heard a growl beside them. A wolf had taken down one of the men. Apparently, the monster was keeping someone as a hostage, and it looked like it had done something like that before. But Yoo Ilhan said that didn't change anything. The wolf kept holding his hostage to avoid being killed by the hero. The other citizens wondered what they should do to save the man, and they were watching the fight as if it were a spectacle. Eartha said that depending on what he did now, he could be seen as a hero or a villain, and Yoo Ilhan asked what that had to do with anything, since he didn't care about that at all. He quickly sliced off the head of the wolf that was holding the hostage, saying that if someone was in danger and he could save them, he would do it. But only if he knew he could, because he wasn't a hero, just a normal person. Eartha tried to tease him, but he said he had said something cool for once, so she should let it slide. It looked like the wolves were going to attack him all at once, thinking he had lost his weapons. The protagonist warmed up, thinking the puppies were too arrogant for thinking his spear was his only weapon, because the boy was still very strong and skilled even without it, and he would show the results of 1,000 years training with the Queen of Combat. He ordered all of them to come at him. The angel observed that the boy didn't do anything reckless like sacrificing his life to save others, but he judged his situation quickly and calmly to make the most efficient attack next. In those 1,000 years, Lita had created a monster in a human body. The angel realized that wasn't just the result of what Lita had taught him. There were also things he had learned through practice. The other people were recording and were impressed by Sun's strength, since the man's whole body was a weapon. He kept striking with his hands, and before anyone realized it, he had defeated them all. But suddenly, a weapon was pointed at his head, and a soldier told him to stay calm and not move. Even with the warning, the boy looked back. Before he realized it, he was surrounded by soldiers. The people got very angry about it since they had just been protected by that same man. The soldier looked at them, confused by the situation, and asked when he had defended everyone. They had secured the entire area where the wolves' bodies were. The soldier who had just pointed the weapon at him asked him not to take it the wrong way. She tried to smooth things over by saying they weren't going to shoot. They just thought there were more monsters left. She continued saying that the armed forces were looking for him but was interrupted by her subordinate. Because the boy wasn't listening at the moment, they thought the boy was really fast, but he was still there at the scene. He tried to open the bodies with his spear, but soon realized he would need to make a special knife for that, and also find a place to do all of it. Moments later, one of the soldiers noticed that the boy was still there, and the commander asked him to listen, but he refused. She worried whether he held any resentment toward the army or the nation, but he denied that as well. But if that were the case, they should ask Yoo Ilhan to work with the armed forces, something the boy didn't want. She tried to understand why he didn't want to work with them, but he simply thought things would get boring if he did. Eartha agreed. He thought the angel had read his mind again, but she explained she didn't need to do that to understand thoughts that were written all over his face. But he commented that he was wearing a mask and figuring out what the inferior race was thinking was nothing. The commander wanted to understand what he was talking about and with whom, since she couldn't see Eartha. But she said it wouldn't be good for him to affiliate with the armed forces or the government, and it would be much more efficient if he worked on his own. He began to think about the matter and Eartha's words and thought it was a lot to handle alone. Later, things had already calmed down in the city. The commander complained about the treatment she received because of the uniform. He said she should leave or something like that. Then Johan appeared in front of them, and she believed he had decided to work with them. But he only asked if she wanted to buy the dog carcasses and said he would do the cutting. But the corporal had to explain to her that those items were very useful. So she said yes, she wanted to buy them, and asked if she could also take the man of stones, but he said no. The monsters had little damage to their bones and hides because Johan had exterminated them in just one attack. Usually, when monsters were killed by firearms, they weren't as useful due to the damage involved. She also noticed that the young man was dividing all the parts of the monsters quickly and precisely. and she started recording a video without the boy's permission. She sent it to her superior, commenting that his skills were very impressive. But in response, she got yelled at because she was supposed to bring him there immediately. She tried to explain that the boy had no interest at all, and he said they had just told her to seduce him with a look or something. Even her corporal thought it was impossible and asked her not to try. When the young man had finished, she was striking his sexy pose, embarrassing herself. But the man just replied that he wanted the payment in cash. She said she would do that and report what had happened to her superiors. And the boy was relieved to have finished everything and celebrated the harvest of mana stones he made. He felt like eating them because they looked like chocolate. The Eartha scolded him for thinking he wanted to be dominated by mana monsters, which would be really bad. Hearing that, he felt like someone would definitely eat one later and become a monster and cause chaos. Meanwhile, he was waiting to receive his payment. He received a briefcase with 37 million and was asked to check it, just in case. Eartha observed that they gave him a lot, probably to maintain a stable connection. The lieutenant tried to seduce him but thought the uniform didn't flatter her because she was actually popular. But the lion didn't listen and said he was already leaving. The lieutenant still asked him to wait and pressed a button. Some lights lit up, making it hard to see what was around. When it passed, they simply couldn't tell where he had gone. But the boy was simply behind them. The angel praised his strategy of diverting everyone's attention to another place to activate his stealth ability. There was only one day left before the heavens began a proper investigation, and they needed to keep moving during that time. As the boy crossed the street, the others wondered where he had gone. The girl was embarrassed for failing to seduce him. In a now calmer environment, he was checking his classes and was excited to choose his first one. The classes were similar to an RPG game, including Lancer, Fighter, Swordsman, Blacksmith, Hunter, and others. He decided to choose the Assassin class because he was strong enough and the stealth skill helped with that. Eartha said he couldn't control his stealth ability because he couldn't keep his mana in check, and his ability didn't consume mana all the time when it was activated. So he understood that he needed to learn mana control quickly. Since there were many existing classes, he asked the angel for a recommendation. She carefully analyzed the abilities to choose the perfect one for him. If he had a bit more experience, maybe he could choose a level 30 or 40 ability. So she thought a bit more before choosing his ability. She recommended the Lancer and Fighter classes because he trained a lot in combat and already had a spear. He said he only started with that because Lita recommended it to him, and he remembered the times where she said he had improved a lot. The first time he resisted a fight against her for 33 minutes. Eartha said he was very lucky to learn directly from the angels because that was rare. He said that if he was that lucky, he shouldn't be a loser like he is. She said it was just his destiny. Eartha said he didn't need to think too much about that because when he leveled up, he could choose his second and third subclass. He said he hadn't heard anything about that on the internet and thought it was just a class change. The angel said that was a waste of life because there was no way essential information would be on the internet. And Han asked if she had had a terrible experience on the internet and concluded that something bad had really happened. He kept thinking about Eartha's recommendations and concluded that Lancer would be the best choice. Eartha asked what was the reason behind his thinking, and he said it was because destructive power depended a lot on the weapon, and a good weapon would have a better effect than if he were a fighter. Eartha commented that it was a good line of thinking, and he would be skilled enough to create better spears if he found the best materials. She truly believed he would become much stronger than he was now. Suddenly, new information appeared in his status. It was a new class available for him to choose. The name of the ability was Dark Lancer. Eartha was surprised because a modification was like a unique job, and he had obtained a unique ability in his first class. Yoo Ilhan still didn't understand what that meant, and Eartha explained that it was an ability available only to one person, because it combined all the experiences the user had acquired to create a new class that had never existed before. She told him to choose that ability no matter what, because it was made especially for him based on his skills. The ability had a higher requirement to level up, but even considering that, it was the most worthwhile. Yoo Ilhan followed her advice and chose the new ability. Upon choosing it, a message appeared saying that his attack power would be 10% higher when in stealth mode and when using a spear. His spear crafting ability had also been improved by 10%, and the requirements for leveling his stealth and blacksmith skills were made easier. As his status absorbed all the experiences he had gained while unable to level up, he jumped to level 18. On the other hand, he could not learn how to activate the mana ability. He was a little disappointed because after realizing he was a Dark Lancer, he saw that he had confused it with a Blood Lancer. He said that if he had known that, he wouldn't have chosen it. The angel was also disappointed because she had confused it with the Lancer and said she couldn't defend herself on the matter. But something behind him caught her attention. When he turned, his status bar was activated. His body started to undergo some changes. He was stronger, and his muscles became more toned. He was startled by this sudden change, but the angel explained that his body was fortified because he gained his first class. He still wasn't used to these sudden things happening. All of his other abilities except mana crafting were at maximum level. Only his title hadn't changed, and he wondered if he would be a solitary pancanist for the rest of his life. Eartha asked if he had gained any active skill, but he hadn't. She said that observing his growth, she didn't think he would be able to learn to use mana even when he got his second class. He asked if that wasn't very dangerous for him, and the angel agreed, but only if he were a normal person. He was a bit relieved when she said he didn't need to worry about that. She explained that if he didn't gain an active skill when he made his first and second class changes, the registry would grant him a very powerful skill on his third chance. The difference is that instead of gaining small abilities, he would get a much better one. Originally, he was supposed to gain 2 active abilities when he got his first class, but that didn't happen. But if all the records of his experiences accumulated until his third class, he would get a very good ability. She thought he was an inferior being worth observing. She started mocking him again. She hid his money with magic so he could search for nearby monsters. He said he understood and asked her to stop pulling his hair. There were more monster hunters besides him, so he wouldn't have to do everything alone, just hunt monsters in his area. He wondered if the Empress could also show up. The angel said yes. She warned that if he had more work than the others, he would receive greater rewards. He said that was the kind of mission he liked, and if she had asked him to save people in danger, he wouldn't have liked it as much. He liked hearing that he would be rewarded for the work he did and said that angels were really cool. While looking for monster information, he found a valuable piece of info on the internet. The comment gave the location of the monsters and warned that the armed forces were firing non-stop, but the bullets weren't even piercing the monsters. Scared people were at that location while bear-like monsters were roaring. Everyone was running, knowing they wouldn't be able to defeat the beasts. Yoo Ilhan joked that today they'd have bear skewers, but the angel said only if he had poison resistance. He got discouraged by her joke. Yoo Ilhan launched into the attack. Stones were flying everywhere. With all that noise, the protagonist thought the government had fired rockets or something. Eartha pointed in the direction he should look. The monster was destroying everything it could. One of the soldiers told them to prepare the bullets and fire everything they had. Everyone obeyed, trying to destroy the monster. But that only enraged the bear, as none of the bullets could penetrate its skin. They weren't prepared to fight a monster of that strength on the 4th day of the Great Cataclysm. Wherever the monster went, it brought destruction with it. The soldiers commented that its direction had changed. Eartha said human architecture was much weaker than she had imagined and couldn't even withstand a Class 2 monster's attack. Yoo Ilhan asked her to be more understanding, because while others were training in the other world, all materials, money, and technology had remained in the same state until the Great Cataclysm, and the world only had the knowledge and experience of ordinary humans. He felt as if the monster was saying no one could stop it. The angel said it probably thought that it was a big fish in a small pond, and told the boy to hurry up. But he was still getting ready because he wasn't prepared. That was the only time his stealth ability truly shone. It was when he made the first strike, so he moved quickly, because until the boy made contact, the bear wouldn't be able to notice him. Eartha asked him to have faith in his ability to hide his presence, even from the gods, and teased the boy, but he said his priority at that moment was something else, and attacked a monster right on the head. The soldiers watched everything happening. He was still annoyed by the nickname Sunjin Bolt, but even so, he continued attacking the monsters. But he wouldn't be able to kill the monster this time with just one hit, because the monster was Class 2. So he thought very carefully about his options, and told all the soldiers to leave the area if they wanted to live. But the soldiers hesitated a little since they had to defend the population. The giant bear continued its attacks. The man said they could stay if they wanted to. All the civilians decided to leave the area. The monster seemed to laugh at the situation, but before it could be attacked again, it sensed Yoo Ilhan's presence. It roared fiercely. Yoo Ilhan said there was no way it was going to hit him, and brandished his spear to strike. He landed his spear right on one of the monster's paws. Eartha was treating it like a roller coaster. Yoo Ilhan asked her to stop having fun with the situation. He managed to enrage the great bear, which roared. With all the smoke, the monster had lost track of him and his stealth status reactivated. It was a great opportunity for him. He wondered if the great bear could withstand the next attack, because although his body remained the same since he came back, he managed to increase his strength through long training and a class change. He remembered the valuable advice Lita gave him when she taught martial arts. She told him not to think about anything else and to focus his weight on a single point. He wondered what he would do if someone got hurt in the process, and the warrior angel mocked him, saying he didn't need to worry since he couldn't even get close to it. He asked Lita who she thought he was, because he was worried about how badly he would get hurt. Lita had understood, but at first thought he was talking about her, and despite everything, he had succeeded, and was managing to focus his weight in one place. He was happy about that, and added that he had come a long way if he could cut a strand of her hair. He remembered those teachings during the fight, and tried to apply again what he had been taught before. He managed to drive the spear into the bear's forehead successfully, and pierced it through the forehead. The bear roared in pain and agony. People nearby noticed it had stopped and wondered if it had died. Little by little, the bear stopped moving, and fell to the ground. His title had changed to 1 hit, 1 kill, and he had gained 10% more in critical attack. The critical attack ability allowed him, when focusing an attack on a vital point, to have several chances of delivering a fatal blow. Eartha said it had taken 3 strikes without using any ability, and Yoo Ilhan asked if she could praise him a bit more than just that. He was happy that his spear was holding up through all of this, and now was time to collect the new materials. And Yoo Ilhan noticed that it had shrunk. Eartha explained that it had a skill to become larger, but the ability was simply deactivated after it died. He commented about his new critical attack ability. Herta said it would work really well with his stealth ability. She added that by fighting monsters and interacting with others, he had achieved good skill development and personal growth. She hoped the boy would continue that way. Suddenly, a large black car appeared at the scene. It looked like someone important was going to come out of it. A man arrived saying he would take care of things there, and they asked where the monster was. It seemed that other ability users had arrived at the scene after everything was already over. They are all gathered trying to understand what happened. The news that the monster was defeated left them with a mix of surprise and boredom. Being informed that it was a level 2 creature, Yoo feels bored just like the others. Something catches Yoo attention, and he looks surprised at the fallen body of the monster and curious about the masked man. This makes Bolt curious to know if the man can see him. But Eartha believes that in fact he was looking at the bear and must have seen the mask when he was nearby. The two users keep looking at the bear. Yoo still can't believe that a person defeated the monster on the 4th day of the Great Cataclysm. The group approaches, praising his strength and asking if he has gone through the second change. Since they don't get a response, some think that the masked man cannot hear or speak. But there is the outsider rule of not speaking to another outsider. The silence makes Yoo irritated, demanding an answer. But to ease the situation, the other says to let it go if the masked man doesn't want to talk. The woman says he's cool, and that he looks like Kadku from Gurum, and the other guy says she has interesting taste. With everything resolved, Yoo asks if there's anything else to do, and the soldier reports there were calls from other places that need help. Meanwhile, Bolt thinks the man is quite social and gets along with everyone. He thinks that if he were in Yoo place, he wouldn't even introduce himself. Suddenly, Yoo appears and introduces himself to him, extending his hand. Not knowing how to act, his only thought is why he wants to shake his hand. Praising him for defeating the bear, Yoo says he won't be able to catch up to him during the mission. He also says that, however, he will surpass him, and that's why he asks him to remember his name. Curious, Bolt asks what he will do once he surpasses him. Then Yoo talks about the level system and declares that one day he will be at a higher level than the others. Even more curious, Bolt wants to know if he intends to become a hero or something like that, and wants to know why he needs a rival. Seeming irritated, he asks about the need to compare himself to others and even to become stronger because of that, like some kind of moral lesson. Very irritated, he even asks Yoo to go annoy someone else and even advises him to become the best version of himself. Still irritated, Bolt asks if he doesn't have focus. How can he try to compare himself to other people? And making it personal, he talks about his years of training and how he kept everything to himself. Then Bolt accuses Yoo of just wanting to use this for fun. After hearing all that, Eartha asks if he's okay, warning that everyone has already left. She says that outsiders like him can't spend too much time with extroverted people, or they get too lost, and asks him to stop acting calm. Bolt just asks her not to read his thoughts. A few moments after what happened, he receives the bear pelt, which despite having no magical properties will be useful since it deflected bullets. Ready to leave, the soldier calls for him, and the boy automatically says it's his. The man says he didn't mean to say that. The two talk, and the man teaches him how to download and use the app that shows monster locations. Finding it strange, Bolt asks if he should be sharing something like that. The man explains that it's for the good of the citizens, thus reducing any danger that may exist. Without saying anything else, the boy goes away. The other soldier asks the lieutenant if he's sure about letting him go with that, and says they should force cooperation with what they have. The lieutenant says that in the other world, he saw skilled people create powerful nations that were later destroyed by monsters. That's why he has no intention of going against the boy who is getting stronger and stronger. The lieutenant says that the world no longer follows the same rules, and that both the government and the military could fall due to different decisions. And that this is the reason not to control these powers, but to have a way of living together, helping each other. The soldier is impressed, and the lieutenant says he is very intelligent and even went to school in Seoul. Eartha thinks that this cooperation from the military is because they know they would be destroyed by the boy. The military force has no way to control him, and understanding this, the soldier did the best thing, which is to have a good agreement with the boy. And with that, creating a good communication network, she keeps thinking about how he still doesn't understand his own strength. Meanwhile, the boy is messing with his phone. Excited, Yoo Ilhan shows her the location of 3 new monsters. He asks what he should do, and Eartha says he shouldn't worry and should go defeat them all. This makes him excited and ready for combat. The areas are destroyed and in ruins due to constant attacks. Passing through the 3 monsters and defeating them all, something still doesn't feel right. Even after eliminating the monsters, Yoo Ilhan wonders why he is still at level 24. He looks at the screen and sees he only gained 1 level, and Eartha explains that it's because they were too weak. She says that his level requires more experience, and if it were another human, it would have easily reached level 30. The boy says that at least something was worth it since they sold everything to the military. Yoo Ilhan gets excited about the 10 million, imagining buying many things and even a property. But Eartha advises that he shouldn't spend the money that way as it would raise suspicion that he is Bolt. Surprising the boy, she says that just this once she will erase the employee's memories. He's happy about how good angel magic is. A new day arrives, and sitting on the bed, Yoo Ilhan is surprised by a message on his screen. The notice is that the broken connection with the other world has been restored, and now it will be possible to physically travel and receive many rewards by completing the summon mission. He clicks on the summon mission and realizes he'll have to be alone once again. Yoo Ilhan asks Eartha what that means. She says that the monsters on Earth are getting stronger and that she was looking at the screen. Yoo Ilhan understands that the others went to another world to get stronger, and she confirms it. Then the boy questions what will happen to him while people are going to the other world, and she simply says he'll stay alone and asks what difference that would make for him. Desperate, Yoo Ilhan says his mother will ask why he didn't go to the other world. And as a solution, Eartha tells him to just answer that there's nothing for him to learn elsewhere, but he doesn't want to act like a high schooler. She apologizes that he has to go through it all again, but there's nothing she can do since she's not one of the decision makers. The boy says he understands that it's not her fault, but Eartha surprises him by saying there is a way to solve it if he becomes a higher being. Then she explains that if he reaches that, not only will he be able to go to another world, but he can also go to heaven and have the same level as the angels. This gives him hope that he might see Rita again. The angel reflects that all of this means they are in a long-distance relationship. Then she thinks a bit more and realizes that in this case, she's acting as a messenger of love between them, which irritates her because she hates it even considers banning relationships in heaven. But with not much else to do, she asks the boy to train so he can go to the other world and to heaven to meet his love. Excited, Yoo Ilhan asks how long it will take to become the best, and she replies it should be less than a millennium. He's ready to become the best. Suddenly, the news reports on the emergency situation of martial law being declared across the country. This leaves the boy very worried. His mother says it's happening all over the world and that they probably had no other choice because the monsters are becoming more dangerous. The order is that everything should shut down while the military defeats the creatures, also limiting the number of people on the streets. This makes Yoo Ilhan think that even the government realizes it can't do anything without change. Calling his parents, he says they should go to the other world. They both want to know why he said that. He says that he was there for a long time and couldn't get stronger, and now with the monsters becoming powerful, he wants to grow even more. The boy says it apparently will be safer than staying on Earth, and his father is very calm in accepting that. But his mother doesn't accept it easily and asks him to take good care of himself. With his mouth full of food, he promises that he will protect himself. He was ready to eat when suddenly his mother reveals that he is the masked man. Still shocked, he wants to know since when she knew. And his mother asks if he thinks she would never recognize him, and that she was surprised to see him on television being able to tell it was him even with a mask and different clothes, wanting to know how she noticed it. Her answer is that mothers are like penguins who recognize their children anywhere, leaving the boy shocked. Yoo Ilhan wants to cry for feeling watched by everyone. His mother asks him to be careful and to make sure he knows how dangerous the monsters can be. And as a final warning, she says the only thing scarier than monsters is other people. With a calm smile, he accepts his mother's concerns. Now smiling, she asks him to always have good breakfasts and make sure to always be careful. He says goodbye to his parents. The boy turns around and already has to deal with problems like the dirty dishes, which Rita always took care of. His parents went to the other world to become stronger, since he can't and has other things to do. Eartha also informs him of her mission in heaven, and the boy asks her to bring him ice cream when she comes back. Taking advantage of the solitude on the last night, he used his money to buy a storage place, turning it into his workspace. Even without all the necessary tools, the boy works hard with what he has. He's busy with the bones and the hide, thinking about how to craft equipment from these materials. A voice appears behind him, giving the solution of using magic. Yoo Ilhan is surprised by Eartha's quick return and even asks if she brought the ice cream, but he realizes that something is wrong. His surprise is that the angel can also use growth magic. With arms crossed, she asks what he thinks she is and says that all this time she was actually using reduction magic. But she asks him to ignore everything and hold her hand so she can give him his reward. He feels her hand is cold but very soft. The alert screen appears, informing that for completing the mission, the reward is the eternal flame. Calmly, Eartha wipes her hand with a handkerchief while Yoo Ilhan wants to know what the thing he received is. She asks the boy to look around, and there is fire. This surprises him since he hadn't started it. She explains that it's a flame that will continue to grow without going out, being a precious flame from heaven. Impressed, he asks if the flame is alive and says it's exactly what he needed. Eartha says that's what she told Rita, and he is surprised. She didn't have a good time since Rita almost made her an assistant wanting to send many gifts to Yoo Ilhan. A little irritated, she says the other one is very worried about him in heaven. The couple's happiness makes Eartha even more irritated. The boy says Rita always understands what he needs. The angel also brings good news and says he received a new mission since he can't go to the other world. He ends up frustrated upon learning that he needs to build a dungeon. He asks many questions, especially why it has to be him, but ends up accepting it, saying it's fine. Then he says he can't just think he can do it and wants to make ramen, even offering her some. After telling him to shut up, She explains to the boy about the duty of helping in the creation of dungeons. This makes him thoughtful, and he comes to the conclusion that the mission is actually to help her. Then she gives the excuse that if it's for her, then it's for him too. The boy isn't very confident in her choices, since he still needs to become stronger, and the dungeon would take a long time. He wants certainty in believing what she says. And she talks about when God used his powers to stop time, influencing the growth of strength and resistance. Not believing it, the boy asks if her plan is just to say that as an explanation. And confidently, she says that is the plan, which the boy thinks is very bold of her. She says he spent millennia perfecting himself, and that's why he's the only person capable of completing the mission. Yoo Ilhan still tries to argue about how sudden all this is. Smiling, Eartha says he's very suspicious. Irritated, the boy says it's because she's trying to get him to do something incredibly difficult. At least she says the advantage is that both of them can gain, especially since he'll receive a nice reward for his efforts. Irritated, he thinks that she's still good with words to convince him. Just in case, he asks what would happen if he didn't accept. Then she replies that the monsters won't have anywhere to go, and as a consequence, humans will suffer. With that, there's nothing else he can do but accept. Eartha then dumps several stones out of a bag, saying they're blueprints and the materials that will be needed for construction. One of the materials is Harcanium Pectinum El Hazra, metals used for high construction that don't exist on the planet. Impressed, Yoo Ilhan says that magical materials are heavy as he tries to hold one. Continuing, Eartha also shows the construction materials, leaving the boy excited to use all of them. But she gives a reminder that once he finishes, he'll have to return all of them, which isn't very exciting for him. Grabbing some tools, Yoo Ilhan asks how he should use them, if he should place the tip of one on the ground or something like that. But Eartha stops him from doing anything. She says that he must specifically create magical tools to attract monsters, and that will transform the surrounding area into a dungeon. Impressed, the boy looks at the blue screen. Continuing her explanation, she says that he must use the blueprints to create a destruction trap, and that it won't be easy. He says he imagines it will be hard, but thinks about the reward, which gets him excited. Pleased with him, Eartha will be by his side for any idea that comes to his mind. With his equipment, the boy is ready to start his work. When the eternal flame is weak, he simply adds more magic stone. Adding another stone to the furnace, he returns to working on the construction. While watching him, Eartha thinks she wasn't wrong, and if the boy doesn't change to the Lancer class, she should recommend him to be a blacksmith. She's very impressed that the boy was able to create weapons that can challenge the powers of gods. But Yoo Ilhan's voice catches her attention, saying he finished the basic form and is carefully working on the next step. Nervous, he tells her not to blame him if it goes wrong. However, Eartha reassures him, saying he can simply start over again since everything will take a long time anyway. While the boy is deeply focused on his work, she watches him and thinks that now she understands why Rita became interested in him. With the first angel spending an entire millennium by his side watching him, suddenly getting irritated by her own observation, she thinks she's just trying to explain how Rita felt. Throwing the tool onto the table, Yoo Ilhan declares he's finished, leaving Eartha surprised. The boy awakened the blacksmith skill, now able to create legendary weapons with all productions gaining 20% efficiency. Looking at the magic cube in the boy's hand, Eartha asks if he really finished that quickly. But looking a bit tired, Yoo Ilhan says it took him 5 hours to make it. Irritated for having spent that time watching him work, she asks if he really followed what was in the blueprint to have finished so quickly. Not in the mood, he throws the cube and tells her to check for herself. Eartha looks at the magic cube, impressed by its perfection and not believing that a human actually created it. But not wanting to declare victory, she simply says he managed to make the cube. At least that makes the boy excited as he asks if they can use construction mana. Confirming, she says she'll call her fellow angels to help and that he should wait. Excited by that, Yoo Ilhan asks if Rita will be with them, but the angel quickly says no. Eartha is surrounded by a blue aura. As he watches, the young man says he recognizes the fluorescent light he saw when he was very young and also sees the angel's halo. 3 angels are summoned to judge what he has done. They are impressed that a human did something like that faster than expected, but they can tell it was made by a human on Earth. Yoo Ilhan realizes how beautiful the angels are, and how Eartha looks very beautiful when she's human-sized. Soon, the angel asks everyone to hurry and use the creation mana since they don't have time to waste. With the magic stones in hand, Yoo Ilhan thinks that she's only focused on completing the destruction trap and nothing else. Suda asks him to be careful next time. The other angels join together and use angelic magic on the stones the boy is holding. Yoo Ilhan feels a strong pressure pass through his body, mana coming from every direction. He wonders if this is how high powers begin. One of the angels asks if he's unable to endure what's happening, but determined, he simply asks them to continue. The boy is focused on making it attractive to the monsters, and that it keeps them inside once they enter. In his thoughts, he asks to attract the beasts that were strengthened during his years of solitude. Suda thinks he's very impressive for an inferior human, and that others wouldn't even be able to endure being near an angelic being. Impressed, the short-haired angel says they'll be swept away if they slip during the process, which hurts his pride. Patha asks how such an interesting human was born. The entire workspace lights up. A message appears confirming the completion of the underground destruction trap of the Earth. The mana level rose to 7, and the quality of the completed artifact increased. The even more powerful cube floats in the room. Yoo Ilhan looks on, amazed. This impresses Shuda, who can't believe he succeeded on the first try. Peitha said she expected him to fail at least 10 times, while the other is impressed that there are even alpha and beta options. Yoo Ilhan becomes curious about what they're talking about, so Eartha explains that they're referring to the final product enhanced by construction mana, and that the words underground and earth appear randomly based on luck, material, and the artisan's skill, with the options being rare. The angels celebrate, saying he's amazing and that they should place it in the dungeon right away. Eartha invites him to join, and of course, he accepts. Yoo Ilhan is carried by the angels to a location with destroyed structures. All the buildings are in ruins. He observes and says it looks like a post-apocalyptic scene. Concerned, Shuda asks if they should use invisibility magic on the boy, but Eartha says that if he doesn't attack first, nothing will happen. A huge mantis watches them flying, but as Eartha said, it does nothing. The short-haired angel carrying the boy says excitedly that it's expected of him, but Yoo Ilhan is already out of patience with him. The boy is irritated that they're looking at him like some zoo animal and says he doesn't plan to talk to them at the end of the mission. Finally, they arrive at the location and the boy can't help but notice how beautiful it is, like a small heaven. Eartha throws the cube, which lights up in the sky and simply disappears, leaving Yoo Ilhan disappointed. The angel celebrates, saying everything went well. The boy doesn't understand, but then something catches his attention. Peitha confirms that something is happening. Elsewhere, the military is fighting a giant rat, which suddenly begins to behave strangely. Not just that monster, but all the creatures begin heading in the same direction, ignoring the humans. The angel admits that Yoo Ilhan is a talented human for creating traps. Eartha says that the dungeons and other locations were also activated. This makes the boy curious, since they told him they could no longer be used. She explains that they cast magic to convert the dungeon energy to earth energy in the other destruction traps. Peitha observes the two and says they're so cute together. Her comment doesn't please either of them. Yoo Ilhan watches the beasts running toward the dungeons. You know they survived for thousands of years, now they'll be eliminated by the trap of God and the angels. This makes the boy think that God's power is impressive for quickly sending humans to another world and leaving the powerful monsters behind. With that, he thinks humans are just dancing in the palm of God's hand. The fact that he was left behind and everything was resolved using the word error. Watching the sea, he thinks that if it weren't for Rita, he would have gone insane. But now he's without her and still needs to become stronger. Strong enough that no one can control him. So he decides that he'll become much stronger for the sake of his own freedom. Yoo Ilhan is sitting on the sofa while eating a sandwich. Next to him is Eartha, back in her smaller size, watching TV. People and monsters disappeared due to the various dungeons that were activated in Korea, Japan, and some parts of China. The boy wonders when his parents will return and can't imagine how either of them can fight. But he knows they have plenty of experience to handle anything. Eartha, still watching the television, says the dungeons are functioning without any problems and praises Yoo Ilhan for a job well done. Then he asks if the angel didn't say they had to make 27 more. Yoo Ilhan asks why the angels came back and if he needs to go back to work. She explains that the destruction trap requires a lot of mana, and since they're out of mana, they need 2 days to recover. Curious, Yoo Ilhan says they're not the only angels and even mentions Rita. But Eartha says that Rita is very busy with many tasks and is therefore being very careful to ensure that things are easy for him. This leaves him disappointed that she still can't come. But either way, he calls her to get back to work because he wants to start with the foundation, and she only thinks about how obsessed he is with work. While walking down the street, Eartha catches a ride sitting on the boy's head, and Yoo Ilhan asks why she returned to the smaller size. She explains that she has another mission to perform as an angel, and that this size is perfect for it. They finally arrive at Ilhan's workspace. The young man is ready to begin creating more traps. She meanwhile observes the materials on the table. Eartha says if he does as good a job as last time, she'll give him a huge reward, and that he probably won't have much time after this one. Excited, he asks if he'll get more Harcanium, but Eartha tells him to stop daydreaming. The leathers appear before him. The angel says that the drying and sterilization of the monster hide he got from the hunt has been completed. This impresses him with the quality, saying that angel magic is the best. Taking advantage of the moment, Eartha says he has an extra job to do. With the leather on the table, he says he'll make gloves and boots. First, he creates rare gloves with 600 defense power and 700 attack power, and then rare leather boots with 550 defense power and 750 attack power. Satisfied with his creation, he says that the ventilation option is also available since it would be bad to move around wearing armor because it gets too hot. Impressed, Eartha asks how he got so good with strategic techniques, and he says he's very good with tasks that require hands-on work. Proudly, she watches the boy working. A new day begins, and they're still at the location. The angel yawns and then asks Yoo Ilhan why he doesn't take a break so he can continue working later. But he simply says he just needs a little more time and will finish soon, and that he doesn't feel tired yet. Eartha says one night awake won't hurt his stamina. Soon, he announces that he's finished, catching her by surprise. His bear hide armor is a unique item with 2,100 defense power and 850 durability. The message says that the armor was made by a craftsman who reached the highest level after defeating a second-class monster. The equipment is the strongest of its grade, capable of withstanding a bite from a higher-ranked monster. Curious, Eartha asks if it's finished, and he says he still needs to do an upgrade afterward. Picking up some bones, he says he still needs to strengthen the armor. He works a bit more on his equipment. A message appears saying the clandestine leather armor has been enhanced. The unique item now has 2,200 defense power, 750 attack power, and 900 durability. The creation mana skill rises to level 8. Excited, the boy says there's a secret function in the armor, which Eartha says she imagines is where the name comes from. She uses her angelic power on the armor, which activates its self-defense mode with spikes coming out. This excites the boy, who says it's like a super hedgehog that would make even a tiger run away in fear. She also remembers the bracelet he made that had a kind of mantis claw coming out. Curious, she asks why he makes weapons that hide claws which pop out. As if it were obvious, Yoo Ilhan asks if she really wants to ask that. That leaves her confused, since it was just a random question, so she asks if there's a special reason. Then the boy says, a little offended, that it's all about the dream of every man and makes it very clear that his parents are doing fine. A bit ironic, Eartha says that's a very deep explanation. Annoyed by this story, she swears in frustration, saying it's ridiculous, and that she wasted her time for nothing. A little calmer, she says it seems the armor also has alpha and beta options, which makes people think that using mana will trigger those options. She becomes curious about the rest of the bones, and he says he'll use them to make a knife, since it's a bit difficult to do certain things with a spear. And as said, he worked until he crafted his knife. The item is rare with 500 attack power and 450 durability. He also creates the Terrible Wolf Skull Mask, a unique item with 600 defense power and 660 durability. Because it was made from the bones of a wolf with a high concentration of mana, it has an unexpectedly high defense power. Curious, Eartha asks if he really made a new mask, and smiling, he agrees, saying he used extra materials. With all his armor on, he asks if he isn't amazing for everything he made. Yoo Ilhan looks at himself in the mirror, thinking it turned out really well. But Eartha asks what he did to the mask to make him look weaker than he is. Not understanding anything, he just defends himself, saying he didn't do anything. Suddenly, a sound catches both of their attention, and Yoo Ilhan asks if it came from outside. Eartha says the sound is similar to someone fighting monsters. This scares the boy, who quickly removes his mask. In an office in the Jongno district, a Class 2 monster appeared. People are informed that they must flee to the other world. Eartha says it's a monster that didn't fall into the dungeon trap, where Yoo Ilhan hopes it's weaker than the Great Brown Bear. Finding his behavior strange, Eartha asks if he's afraid of the monster, and the boy says it's not about that. Then his answer is that if it's stronger than the bear, he'll have to skin it and make a new armor. Before the fight, Yoo Ilhan needs to repair his steel spear. He upgrades the unique grade spear. Its attack power is 1,100 and durability 715, with a bonus of 20% increased critical hit rate. It's considered a miracle for a human to have created it using steel without the help of mana, and since it's his best weapon, again, its capacity increased. Yoo Ilhan is thrilled with his new weapon, which became powerful. He asks Eartha to give him the tool she used on his spear, but she refuses. The boy runs through the street among people fleeing from the monster. Eartha, flying above, points to the enormous monster. The feline destroys one of the buildings. The creature knocks down a helicopter, leaving the soldiers terrified. They ask to change the way they're fighting. One of them on the radio calls for missiles and says that at this rate, the Blue House will be hit. Once again, bullets are fired at the monster. People watch the scene in fear. Yoo Ilhan, watching the battle, asks if besides the soldiers, the people who change classes are also fighting. Eartha explains that even if they change classes in the other world, fighting a Class 2 monster would still be very difficult. But the boy doesn't think that way and says the Earth is his home and he must protect it. Normally, he doesn't put his life at risk, but if he needs to work a little to save others, he can do that. With his mask hiding his identity, the boy goes into battle. He runs among the people fleeing from the monster. Eartha warns that the leopard is stronger than the Great Brown Bear. A missile is fired at the monster's face. The soldier celebrates and says that if it keeps up like this, they'll defeat the beast. But he notices something wrong. Suddenly, the smoke disappears, and they realize the missile caused no damage to the leopard. The soldier, in despair, orders everyone to get out of there. The giant leopard destroys the tanks. Soon, Yoo Ilhan, or rather Sungin Bolt, appears to attack the beast. With a single spear strike, he hits the beast in the eye. The creature screams in pain from the precise blow. People cheer for the hero, happy that he didn't go to the other world and that they are safe because of it. Suddenly, the giant leopard moves, throwing the tanks into the air as it roars fiercely. The boy is on top of the beast. More bullets are fired at the leopard. Then Sungin Bolt has to jump. The soldiers order them to fire with full force. Meanwhile, Sungin Bolt jumps between the tanks that were thrown by the creature. He offers his hand for them to hold on to be saved. The soldiers are rescued and placed on the ground. They thank Sungin Bolt deeply for saving their lives. But the masked boy thinks that he doesn't do this because he wants to be treated like a hero, but because saving is what he can do. Something catches his attention. He notices a different sound. The soldiers tell him to run. The leopard is staring him down. Sungin Bolt says that it is smarter than the bear and knows what the greatest threat to it is. Because of that, Eartha, worried, asks him to be careful since being stealthy no longer works. Confident, he asks her not to worry because this is an opponent he can face head-on. The leopard has only Sungin Bolt as its target, and noticing this, the soldiers take advantage of the chance to attack. The people who stayed also notice this and decide to help in the fight. A fireball is launched at the beast. More people call out to use their powers. Suddenly, a powerful blue lightning bolt strikes the beast. In a helicopter is the Empress. This impresses the people. One of the guys even says that all this time the Empress is actually a beautiful person. The monster is wounded by the attacks. This is the perfect moment for Sungin Bolt to attack the beast, and he charges at it with his sharp spear. The boy dodges the beast's paw. He performs a spinning jump, then strikes with his spear at the leopard's eye. The people watching the fight fear that he might die. All the commotion makes the Empress worried. Then an old man points at something happening. The ground is covered in red liquid. Everyone turns to see the spikes emerging from Sungin Bolt's armor. Sungin Bolt tells Eartha that apparently he's making his money worth it. But she only has 3 things to say to him. He looks horrible. In his defense, he says appearance doesn't matter. But Eartha asks if he would be okay showing up like that in front of Rita, and the boy says no, proving her point. Roaring angrily, the leopard moves very fast, throwing Sungin Bolt far away and making Eartha nauseous. The boy complains that he should have learned how to climb. The monster is even angrier and attacks everything in front of it. The enraged leopard searches for him. To dodge, he makes another leap. Sungin Bolt lands on top of the leopard, with the spikes on his shoes piercing the beast. He takes advantage of the moment to use his spear and lands a critical hit, raising his hit skill to level 21. The creature screams in even more pain. Shots are fired at it. People realize the leopard is moving slowly, and a soldier calls to begin the attack. Even though they're not strong enough for a Class 2 monster, people gather to attack too, using tools to wound its paw. Sungin Bolt observes this, and Eartha tells him to take the opportunity and finish it. But he thinks it's unnecessary and that the people can take care of the rest. Then she says the leopard is about to evolve to Class 3. The beast's eyes light up. Suddenly, some kind of tentacles start coming out of the beast, scaring Sungin Bolt. The creature's body is beginning to mutate rapidly. Sungin Bolt says he's not the best at dealing with tentacles, and that they should have brought an elven archer or a knight princess. Out of patience, Eartha says it's not the time for jokes, and that he should know she can't help if he dies. Sungin Bolt realizes the beast hasn't fully evolved to Class 3, and that he needs to defend himself while he still has a chance. Suddenly, a blue lightning bolt hits the tentacles. At least it has an effect. From the helicopter, they spot the Empress. She says her attack won't have much effect because the levels are too different. The boy realizes the leopard is regenerating and needs to do something strong enough to stop it. Then the Empress offers to strengthen him with magic, leaving the boy confused. She explains that she will be left without mana after doing so and wants to be sure he can defeat the beast. Determined to put an end to it, he simply tells her to do it. Then she jumps from the helicopter, landing next to him, which leaves him confused. The Empress says that to strengthen him, she needs physical contact and warns that using all her remaining mana, she won't be able to help him. With that, she declares that her life is in the boy's hands. This makes him nervous, trying to understand what she meant by that. Then she begins the magic strengthening process. The spirit of thunder is inside him. Attack power and critical hit chance increase by 50% for 30 seconds. When attacking, thunder will continue at constant speed. Sungin Bolt feels the powerful energy enter his body. When the strengthening ends for 3 minutes, his skills will be reduced by half. Eartha watches this and says he's incredible for a human, having great attacks and receiving magic even as a first class. Feeling powerful, Sungin Bolt is ready for battle. He drives his sharp spear into the monster once again. The Empress says that if he doesn't finish it, the soldiers will use missiles, and if that happens, there will be more victims and destruction. But Sungin Bolt doesn't want to let that happen and suffer loss, especially since his workplace is in the surrounding area. A critical hit is landed together with the thunder. An explosion with an energy discharge occurs, and Sungin Bolt gains 784,983 experience points. Just as his level rises to 28 and his strength, agility, endurance, and mana increase by 5, he obtains the record of level 87 of the giant leopard. With the monster's defeat, Eartha congratulates him on the good work of defeating the creature before it evolved into Class 3. Startling the boy, the Empress asks if the creature was eliminated, and very nervously, he asks if she didn't receive any points. But she responds that she is not part of a group with him. This leaves the boy confused, wondering if a party system really exists, and that he might not know because he's always out there alone. In defense, Eartha says that loners don't join parties. Soon, the borrowed mana will leave Sungin Bolt's body, and for 3 minutes all his abilities will be reduced. Finally, the fallen body of the leopard hits the ground. Eartha says he barely won and that it would have been humiliating if he had been crushed. With the victory, Everyone around starts shouting for Sungmin Bolt, leaving the antisocial boy a bit startled. They also shout for the Empress and all the help she gave. The boy doesn't know how to react. Eartha says he should enjoy it and finds his behavior strange. To calm him down, she says the creature was defeated. But that's not what the boy is worried about. He points to the destroyed body and says that now you won't be able to get the leather for new armor. Eartha impatiently asks if that's really important, and he defends that it is for him. The deceased leopard's body became smaller. The soldiers are unsure how to divide the parts. To solve it, Sungmin Bolt says that it's his specialty and offers to help. Then he calls for the Empress and asks what is the best way to divide the monster. Everyone looks at her, enchanted by how beautiful she is. She says he should take 60%, she'll take 20%, and the others will get the remaining 20%. Sungmin Bolt asks if everyone agrees, and since no one complains, he jumps onto the beast. He looks at the fallen creature. Then he starts dividing the parts. His happiness comes from finding one of the rare stones he imagined it would have. Eartha says that's expected of a creature evolving to the 3rd class. Everyone talks about the Mana Stone. The Empress shouts and says it's a Class 2 Mana Stone and that it should already count as 60%. He agrees and says the others can divide the rest. But one of the soldiers says it's a Mana Stone that asks if it shouldn't be excluded. This causes an uproar where people shout that they risk their lives and cause damage. They also yell that they're not satisfied with the division. Seeing this, Eartha says that's to be expected from people of low status, and that she was foolish to think they'd be like him. Speaking loudly for everyone to hear, he says that since everyone is complaining, he has a plan. A soldier is happy that he agrees, and another says he should have done that from the start. Having no idea what he'll do, Eartha asks what the plan is and if he's really going to give up the Mana Stone. He remembers what his mother always said, that he should keep in mind that it's not easy to solve things with words, and that's why he shouldn't bother arguing when he can use his fists. Even Eartha is surprised by the advice. Then Sungmin Bolt says he'll be the son who listens to his mother. He tells the people to take the stone and throws it back to where he took it from. Everyone is shocked by what he did. Sungmin Bolt says they can take it as they want and, as said before, he'll take it if it's less than 60%. He jumps to the ground and in a terrifying tone says no one will be safe. Everyone looks frightened by the very sharp spear stuck in the ground. Afraid, they start pushing each other to grab it. They understand that even if everyone goes against Sungmin Bolt, they won't be able to defeat him. So they say Sungmin Bolt can keep the stone since he deserves it for what he did. The boy jumps back onto the leopard. Taking advantage of him being there, the Empress asks him to remove her part, and in return, she'll give 40% of hers to him with more leather than bone. Without hesitation, he seals the deal. To carry everything, the Empress calls for a vehicle. Sungmin Bolt observes everything and imagines she must be from a wealthy family or have a successful business. Looking again at the people, they ask Sungmin Bolt to help them divide the rest of the things. They say they can't remove the skin without his help. The soldier says he wants to earn a lot of loot and go to the other world. Thinking it's hypocritical, Eartha says that at first they thought Yoo Ilhan shouldn't have the stone and now they're asking for help. She asks if they're not ashamed of doing that and irritated says it's the bad part of her job and even considers moving to the countryside. He agrees and says Rita should come in her place, but she says for now she'll stay on the job, though she wants 50%. But they don't accept it and ask why the Empress got 40% and for them the rate is higher, saying it's discrimination. With little choice, they accept the offer. The boy helps them by taking his share and leaves them fighting over the rest of the division. Yoo Ilhan is about to go home when the Empress calls out to him. He stops and turns to look at her. She says his evasion skill is incredible, and that she only saw him because she was spying on him. Getting straight to the point, the Empress says she wants to form a group with him, and that she thought the boy would be a good partner. However, he disagrees with what she said. She explains that she plans to stay on Earth since she doesn't think she's weak enough to go to the other world to complete missions. Then she asks if he will do the same, and for that reason, she believes they'll end up meeting more often. Without waiting for a response, she hands him her business card and asks him to get in touch. Then she leaves the scene without exchanging any other words. Looking at the card, he realizes the Empress's real name might be Kang Mei. Yoo Ilhan likes that she's not persistent, but he has no intention of contacting her. He then calls Eartha so they can leave, declaring that they'll have a lot of work to do. Back at his workplace, the boy has created the 5th magic cube. Eartha says that a Class 3 monster is about to form and wonders what's wrong with Earth, and he tells her to ask God. Almost going insane, she screams that she can't come to a conclusion, and once again Yoo Ilhan tells her to ask God. Then he wants to know why she's asking now since she didn't say anything back there. She says she has to maintain her reputation as a superior being and couldn't show her frustration in front of inferior beings. Annoyed, Eartha asks why he's so calm, since it's a problem in his own world. She asks if he doesn't realize the problem of having a Class 3 monster in a world where few people are even primary class. Eartha says the balance of power is currently in the monster's favor. Right now, people are getting stronger with the easy missions God gave, but the monsters are evolving too fast. Her concern is how to solve this, but Yoo Ilhan says he's not worried because there's nothing he can do. Going back to work, he asks how the other countries are doing. Eartha replies that only Korea is having this problem. Pointing at the cubes, he says the destruction traps are the priority right now. Suddenly, an idea passes through Eartha's mind and she thinks about the possibility that they made the monsters stronger. She thinks it's impossible, but believes it may have been the trigger for the monsters to enter berserk mode and awaken the threat she sensed. Eartha explains that in other worlds, the monsters were captured before they felt in danger and evolved. Different creatures started having offspring among themselves, giving birth to new and more dangerous monsters. Evolution in the dungeon is rare, and they do it by eating other creatures. Yoo Ilhan says that's the true home of monsters. Eartha says that outside the dungeons they evolve by eating others, but inside the dungeon, their growth is halted. This way the boy understands that dungeons are meant to help humans, and that's why Eartha says he's perfect to create one. Now he's decided to build destruction traps. Yoo Ilhan throws a stone into the furnace. Watching him, Eartha asks if he finds it fun to create things. He agrees but says it doesn't make sense if it's only that. The reason is for him to gain new experiences. It all makes sense in Eartha's mind as she remembers that he had to live in the world alone for 1,000 years. Then she understands that wanting new experiences is understandable. Suddenly, she realizes she's thinking too much about him and is startled by the possibility of getting involved with an inferior being. The boy finds it strange that she's arguing with her own mind, so she tries to convince herself that it's not a bad thing. Then she tells Yoo Ilhan to get stronger and to keep experiencing more things always and wherever he wants. He says he knows and that he will become even stronger. Day turns into night. The angels gather to release construction mana, and after that, they go to create the dungeons. Without knowing in which country it will appear, he only hopes there won't be any monsters. Then Eartha says that even if a class 3 appears because of the destruction trap, it won't be his fault and that he did something important. With a small smile, he thanks her for that, leaving the angel feeling a bit strange. Yawning, he says he's going home to sleep. The shower is running, but there's no one under it. While Yoo Ilhan looks at himself in the mirror. On TV, the local news talks about the giant leopard that was taken down. Coming out of the bathroom while drying his hair with a towel, the boy asks Eartha if she thinks he's gained a little weight. Not giving it much importance while eating chips, she simply responds that he is bigger every time he levels up. Because of that, he shouldn't be surprised each time. He also thinks his appearance is improving and asks what she thinks. Without patience, she says his face is irrelevant to someone as superior as her, but maybe for a human it is. That excites him, and he asks Eartha to look at his muscles. But it annoys her, and she throws the chip bag at him, complaining that he's blocking the TV and tells him to put something on. He laughs at her and says he's going to bed and tells her to do the same and not to stay out watching TV so late. As soon as he goes to the room, she returns to normal human size. The chip bag on the couch is picked up. She takes a look to make sure the boy went to sleep. Then she says his face and body are nothing to the superiors, but his true greatness is on the inside. The TV is still on. Realizing what she said, irritated, she crumples the wrapper and asks herself why she's complimenting his personality. In her mind comes the image of Rita saying how perfect Yoo Ilhan is. But the boy doesn't hear her desperate screams since he's in bed dreaming about Rita. In the morning, the boy is awakened by a message notifying that he has reached the maximum level of rest. All rest activity efficiency rates have increased, making Yoo Ilhan wonder how many skills exist. If the boy has ingredients for the evolution of rest, he can evolve to the next level. Suddenly, Eartha appears screaming about the rest skill, and asks when he learns something with SS at difficulty. He thinks it's a joke, a skill like that being SS at ranked. But Eartha wants to know how he learned it because she wants it too. Impressed, Yoo Ilhan wonders if it's such a great skill. One night in the last 100 years, the boy searched for a way to sleep comfortably. Shocked, Eartha is impressed that he researched how to sleep with such effort. She says he gained a skill that's very hard to learn and even harder to evolve. Devastated by this, she says she's really impressed. But Yoo Ilhan wants to know what it can be used for. She says it's to sleep and rest well. To the boy, it's nothing special, and she asks what else he expected. Suspicious, he doesn't think it's just that, and if it were, she wouldn't be so shocked. With a wicked look, he asks her to confess the truth. Eartha says she had no intention of hiding it, confirming that the boy's accusation is true. She says it's time to explain about the evolution of humans, sparking his curiosity. Evolution is a skill, a type of achievement to gain abilities with the same rules as changing titles. Confused, student Yoo Ilhan calls on teacher Eartha and asks her to explain it as if he were 5 years old. She uses his before and after as an example, and he finally understands. Back to the lesson, she says that the skills meet the requirements for evolution. Butchery and blacksmith don't have additional levels like spear arts and taijutsu because they're already at the peak for him. Stealth, on the other hand, is a skill that can't be controlled actively. Taijutsu and spear arts have evolution requirements that are too hard for him to fulfill at his current level, so she tells him to exclude them as well. But the boy wants to know why the rest skill is different. However, Eartha just tells him to check for himself. On the blue screen, the heart of a sleeping class 2 monster is at a 0.500th rate. Trouble blood at a rate of 0.500th liters, good sleep at a rate of 0.100th hours. Mana stone from a class 3 monster 0 first. But all of that didn't make him understand, and in desperation, the boy asks what all of this means. Eartha wonders how to explain it and surprises him by saying it's easier to compare than the others. She asks him to check the evolution requirements for the spear arts skill. The skills required are to eliminate class 3 monsters with just a gulp or a knife minus 500 times. Mammoth stones from class 3 monsters, 2001. Then Eartha compares and says that if the requirements for spear arts are Everest, those for rest are like Baekdu. Yoo Ilhan says it's not easy to climb Baekdu, but she says he can do it easily. He says she always thinks he'll do something great and reminds her that he still can't use mana and is only level 28. Eartha becomes thoughtful and thinks his leveling speed is very slow and wonders if it's because of the title. Even with the high mana wall, the difference between being able to use mana or not is huge. The reason he is so strong is because he's learned martial arts for thousands of years. This makes Eartha think that without that skill or stat, another human could surpass him. Worried, she thinks that if the boy learns to use mana, he'll become a being capable of ruling all of creation in the Akashic record. She's eager for that day to come and wants to know what kind of revolution he will cause as he gets stronger. Her sigh is one of relief, but Eartha doesn't want to think about it anymore because thinking too much about it is dangerous. On the table, a beautiful breakfast is laid out with a note left for Yoo Ilhan, who enjoys everything he has a right to. He's impressed by the amount and wonders if they think he's going to hunt some troll, and also wonders if his parents are on Earth. Meanwhile, Eartha says that once the man is activated, monsters that don't exist will start to appear. Yoo Ilhan asks if she's a teacher, which satisfies her for having managed to explain it to someone at his level. The emergency broadcast on TV catches both of their attention. The place where the Class 2 monster attack happened is shown, and several buildings were destroyed during the incident. They both watch the TV closely. The boy remembers it was the day of the conflict, and Eartha confirms it was about the fight with the leopard. Trying to guess the boy's expression, Eartha says it may not be what he's thinking, which leaves him not understanding what it's about. The area is clean and the body disappeared along with the people who were dividing the hunting loot. Hearing that, Yoo Ilhan is surprised that some people reported a dungeon opened and swallowed everyone. However, the boy doesn't believe all of it was the dungeon's fault. To him, it's a different monster. Eartha says that the leopard was definitely eliminated, with the mana stone as proof that the hunt was completed in 99.9% of cases. Out of curiosity, Yoo Ilhan wants to know about the remaining 0.01%. She replies that the monster was pregnant and about to have a baby. Thinking it over, his conclusion is that the monster was carrying a cub in her belly. He says it was fast, but he saw a black leaper on the screen and imagines it must be a master of stealth. Annoyed, he believes it wouldn't have happened if he had completed the elimination. But Eartha doesn't blame him and says it's the consequence of those people's ambition. To him, that doesn't matter because people were eliminated, including those who believed in and supported him. Seeing how he is, it's something Eartha had thought about. She thought it wouldn't affect him, and that's why she still doesn't understand him very well. Yoo Ilhan remembers the moment the thing was about to be eliminated and how it was all madness. He imagines that all of it was an attempt to hide the cub, and Eartha agrees with him, saying it was her failure for thinking something like that could happen. The special ability of the new creature is stealth. Yoo Ilhan remembers having left half the body without making any cuts, and the cub must have been hiding. Because people were arguing over the loot division, nothing more could be done. Imagining that people spent too much time arguing until the moment the cub was born. Eartha says it's a miraculous coincidence. However, the boy is worried about something else. He asks about the possibility of the new monster being Class 3. Considering how good it is at stealth, Eartha says it certainly is. The TV is turned off by Yoo Ilhan. And curious, she asks the boy if he plans to do something. Assuming it's very difficult, he says he thinks it's worth trying if he's prepared enough. Thinking about the possibility that the opponent is a stealth user, he's confident that he can't lose. Looking impressed, Eartha says that's to be expected from a master of stealth. Awkwardly, he asks her not to say it like that and wonders if the leopard isn't that good with other abilities. And Eartha believes it's impossible for a creature to be excellent in all skills and thinks either its defense or strength must be weak. To make up for the stealth ability, the fight is worth it. He now has enough information. The boy grabs his coat. Yoo Ilhan intends to make more equipment and defend himself in whatever way possible. His concern is knowing how much damage will be caused if the monster is left loose. Suddenly, he stops as he remembers to ask for help. Finding the business card, and while dialing the number, Eartha asks if he's going to call using his own cell phone. She says he's making a public announcement that Sungyeon Bolt is Yoo Ilhan. Only then does he realize how stupid his idea was. So he makes the call from a public phone. Carefully, he dials the numbers from the card. Eartha already assumes that she will help. The Empress's phone rings, and she finds it strange that it's from a public phone. Marie's phone rings. She finds it odd that it's from a public phone. When she answers the call, the boy is nervous. He stumbles over his words a bit, saying he's the person she saw 2 days ago, but she still doesn't know who it is. Then he announces that he's Sungyeon Bolt. Very surprised, she says she didn't expect him to call so soon. Yoo Ilhan becomes even more embarrassed. Noticing this, the Empress says she imagines he's embarrassed about the nickname. Not wanting to waste too much time, he explains the reason for the call, and the Empress understands that it's something very dangerous. She asks him to be careful. The call between them ends. Yoo Ilhan is satisfied that Kang Mirai quickly understood the situation and decided to alert the government and the military as well. Knowing she has many contacts also impresses him, and he wonders if he's ready too. Back at his workplace, the basics are done and he's ready to begin working. Curious, Eartha asks what he's doing and says his spear is already enough as a weapon. He asks her to just watch, which irritates Eartha, who pulls her own hair. Then he responds that he's doing postings, causing her to be confused. She looks at those strange pieces. Then she asks what the boy is making and if he intends to make a necklace or something like that for a giant. With the wrong answer, he jokes that she should go back to kindergarten and learn again. Yoo Ilhan returns to work. Judging by the shape, she says it's a spear, but she's wrong again. The answer comes when she looks closer and realizes it's a harpoon. She guesses it's a harpoon, and Yoo Ilhan says she's right. The boy says it's a different kind of spear. Yoo Ilhan says the purpose is to throw it at the prey and pull it back, being commonly used to hunt whales. The advantage is that it's easy to enter and very difficult to come out, and he explains that he'll need to make a rope with giant leopard leather because it's resistant. Very impressed, Eartha praises him and asks if he's really not using mana, imagining it's impossible to make something like that so quickly. And he just says that he wouldn't be making weapons if he knew how to use mana. He'd go fight the monster directly. Yoo Ilhan's happiness grows when everything is ready. Meanwhile, Eartha dislikes the idea that the cub will be eliminated with weapons made from the mother's leather and bones. The boy is about to use a mana stone. However, Eartha desperately asks if he doesn't think it's a waste to use it on just one weapon. Despite denying it, he says it's all for his own survival. She just tries to accept it, imagining this must be how Yoo Ilhan thinks. The stone is added and the harpoon of the aggressive and violent leopard hunter is completed. The construction mana skill increases to 12. Eartha says the activation time of the skills has gotten shorter and warns that it's not usually this easy. But the boy is just impressed that it even has alpha and beta options, and Eartha explains that extra options like those don't always appear. The harpoon's attack power is 1050, and there's a 20% increase with critical hit and damage. The durability of the new equipment is 960. Thanks to the artisan's skill, it's much stronger and more efficient than the materials normally allow. Even the options are high class, which excites the boy. Yoo Ilhan is pleased that the Akashic record gave him good options, making the item twice as good as he expected. Eartha says that at this point it's basically cheating, but the boy doesn't see anything wrong with it. From the public phone, Yoo Ilhan talks with Kang Mirai, who asks if everything is ready. He warns her not to take the path to the right because of the stealth ability, the monster might ambush them. The boy says the creature has remained there since the mother's death, which makes the Empress wonder why it's still there. Then he thinks it might be for revenge. His request is that they be careful since they were responsible for the mother's death. Kang Mirai says she's prepared, but still wants to know if he has a plan. He confirms that he does, and both are in agreement. Yoo Ilhan and Eartha head to where the leopard is. Arriving at the place, Eartha quickly senses that the monster is nearby. This makes Yoo Ilhan happy that the leopard is brave and not afraid of anything, which leads Eartha to imagine that it's relying on its stealth ability and hasn't noticed them yet. He gets excited to see when the monster will start to feel fear. Yoo Ilhan begins setting the trap. Even making noise on purpose, he finds it strange that he hasn't been attacked yet. Confident, Eartha says that must mean one thing, that the boy's skill is better than the leopard's, just like the harpoon trap. But the boy still doubts it, especially since he's setting it up right in front of the creature. Enchanted, Eartha says he was truly born to be an assassin and should choose that subclass in the next title change. For him, the whole situation is humiliating, but apparently he has the advantage, and Eartha warns him not to miss this chance. Something catches the boy's attention. Finally, a leopard appears, seeking revenge. The two are ready for what's to come. The beast is lurking. There's a 10% bonus from stealth and 10% from spear arts. Yoo Ilhan understands that it's because it resembles a spear, but at least the skill effects still apply. He prepares for his strike. The boy throws the harpoon at the beast. The monster is hit in the hind leg. Then it cries out in pain after being struck. Eartha observes that the cub is half the size of the mother, yet it's class 3. Even with all the skill effects, the harpoon only went halfway, leaving the boy concerned. The angel explains that it's not just because of the class, it's likely due to its lower defense and endurance, and luckily, its skill is also stealth. The monster roars fiercely to intimidate its opponents, and Eartha tells him to be careful. The creature is very fast when launching its attack, but the trap is very effective, so its attack range is limited. The beast watches as the boy runs. This is the moment when he strikes the leopard, with the hit landing as a critical. Luckily, Yoo Ilhan has good perception. The beast makes another attack. The boy defends himself with his bracelets, which are severely damaged. From the impact, he's thrown backward. His eyes fill with tears over the destroyed bracelet. But at least it wasn't his arm. He wouldn't be able to fix that like he could the bracelet. And Eartha realizes that the stupid protection bracelet actually helped. The beast attacks again. But Yoo Ilhan is much more alert now and dodges it. Suddenly, something strange happens. Eartha thinks it might be another skill, which he agrees with, saying the monster has a lot of tricks up its sleeve for a class 3. Another harpoon hits the creature. It struggles to break free, which might make things worse. The leopard tries to cut the rope. Desperate, Eartha tells the boy to throw the rest of the harpoons. They didn't expect the monster had a long-range slicing ability. Yoo Ilhan thought monsters were simply very strong beasts, but now he'll have to face creatures beyond what he imagined. Without wasting time, he throws another harpoon. His aim is a success. The giant leopard is now restrained by the harpoons. With that, he thinks the monster won't be able to use its long-range ability anymore. Impressed, Eartha praises him for being good at throwing darts. But the boy asks to be called Ishmael, which leaves her confused. Yoo Ilhan asks if she doesn't know Moby Dick. Without patience, she says it's too early to let their guard down since the situation isn't over yet. Someone calls out to Yoo Ilhan. The boy simply thinks it's the monster, and even says it's very good at stealth. But it's just Kaimire calling out to him while arriving in a car. She throws a device at the monster, attacking it with a twin lightning beam. The powerful beam knocks out the black beast. Then the car stops and she steps out. The Empress asks how he managed to capture the leopard. Yoo Ilhan immediately gets nervous with her there. All he says is that it's not a question someone who used that kind of power should be asking. He thinks she definitely isn't a normal hunter. The boy is impressed by the attack power she displayed. To him, that was too much for someone of first class. But back to what matters. The creature has recovered from the blow and is ready to attack. Yoo Ilhan grabs another harpoon. He prepares to throw it. The beast threatens with a roar. Then he throws it, hitting and pinning the leopard's paw. He tells Kaimire to attack whenever she can since the monster is strong and he doesn't know how long the pillars will hold. The boy asks if she can counterattack and she says with her lightning she can do it at that moment. She warns that in 2 minutes she'll be able to deliver a very powerful attack. So Yoo Ilhan asks her to let him know when she's about to do it. The beast is still extremely enraged and struggles to break free from its prison. Surprised, Eartha says the monster still isn't out of mana. The creature's eyes stare at him. The boy understands that this is its way of telling him it'll go to the end to bring him down. Eyes he knows from many years. Animals become stronger because of their survival instinct when cornered, and ironically, living beings shine the brightest in such moments, like a burning flame. Another lightning beam is fired at the creature. The black leopard screams in pain. In retaliation, it makes another attack, but Yoo Ilhan dodges again. Even he is impressed by how powerful it is. Eartha says it's mineralization and the boy thinks that's just too crazy. Kaimire continues her attack. However, her lightning doesn't reach, making things difficult for her. The monster keeps roaring, trying to break free. Yoo Ilhan thinks it's one very determined bastard. He even mocks it, asking the monster if it doesn't mind having its legs torn off. To paralyze the beast, he has to wait for the Empress to be ready. He jumps onto the roof of the car and asks if she has any very strong magical ability. The car's driver looks for something. He pulls out a weapon and asks if it will do. But the Empress isn't sure if it will be enough. Only Yoo Ilhan is thinking but doesn't believe it's the right moment for something like that. Then the Empress asks if he knows how to use it. The boy replies that he knows most weapons on Earth. He runs with the weapon toward the monster. The Empress watches and says she wouldn't believe it if someone told her, but she believes in Yoo Ilhan. Always by his side, Eartha asks if he backed off because he thought he'd ruin the armor. Impressed, he asks how she knows him so well. The creature is too angry for him to use martial arts or spears against it. Suddenly, Yoo Ilhan is alerted that one of the pillars has been torn out. With great force, the beast breaks free. He realizes the ropes are still intact since they were made using skills, but Eartha yells that it's not the time for jokes. Driving past the monster, the Empress is ignored as the creature's eyes are locked only on Yoo Ilhan. Looking at his watch, there's still 1 minute left until the ultimate power can be used. A little more time is needed. However, with the monster enraged, the rest of the pillars will soon be torn out too. Calling an earth monster an alien, Yoo Ilhan begins shooting at it. One of the eyes is hit, and a creature cries out in pain. The maximum firing rate is reached, impressing Eartha for happening in such a short time. More shots are fired at the leopard. Even the Empress is impressed by the amount of damage done with a rifle and wonders if there's a buff on the weapon. Suspicious, Eartha thinks that a Class 3 monster wouldn't be affected by a rifle under normal circumstances. But Yoo Ilhan's shooting skill pushed the weapon beyond its limits. While he's still shooting to buy time, the Empress warns the boy to get ready. Only 7 seconds remain. In sync, he runs while counting down. The weapon is dropped on the ground. With 2 seconds left, he runs while grabbing the harpoon. The beast tears out more pillars, completely freeing itself. Yoo Ilhan keeps running to avoid being caught. And finally, she fires the triple beam. The powerful beam strikes the monster's head. The beam envelops the entire body of the leopard, and Mirai feels the full extent of her powerful ability. She asks if it's over when they're back in the car, but Yoo Ilhan says it's not yet. The beast then reappears using its ability. The Empress is surprised to realize that the leopard used its high-level stealth ability against her attack. The giant black leopard is ready for revenge. For Yoo Ilhan, stealth never worked on him, jumping out of the car to attack. He strikes the already injured eye of the beast with his harpoon. The wounded beast falls to the ground and he makes a leap. That impresses the Empress, realizing he perceived the monster's ability. Tying a few knots with the ropes, Yoo Ilhan learns the binding skill. He then restrains the monster with the ropes. Eartha is impatient and asks why he doesn't just finish the creature already, but he says he has something to do. The Empress gets out of the car and goes to him. She finds the boy's reaction strange, then asks what he wants. He reminds her that weren't they going to form a party, or does she want him to keep all the X for himself? This attitude surprises her quite a bit. Shaking hands, a party is formed with the two members. After that, a window appears. On the screen, the boy realizes he can check the members' statuses just like he does with his own. The union also makes it feel like his senses have improved. Finding his behavior odd, the girl asks why he's acting like he's never done this before. So he makes an excuse that it was a long time ago. Back to the beast, lying on the ground. With farewell, he delivers the final mercy blow. 2,938,097 exp is obtained, and strength, dexterity, endurance, and mana increase to level 36. And as a record, the gain of a level 102 Shadow Leopard. Proud, Eartha says he jumped from level 28 to 36 in a single blow. Suddenly, he starts to feel dizzy and nauseous, and realizes the same is happening to Kang Mirai and asks if she's sure he didn't take all the exp since he got a pretty high dose. Then Eartha says that a Class 2 monster is very different from a Class 3-1, and that compared to the amount of XP gained, the level he rose is still small. With that, she believes he's taking many penalties due to the title. Finally, the headache passes for Yoo Ilhan. He goes to the beast to examine its condition, and apologizes to the hide for not being able to protect it, but Eartha already warns him not to cry over the hide. He says it would be amazing to make armor from the hide of a tertiary class monster. While cutting the hide, embarrassed by the damage he caused, he says there's not much to do but accept it. Then something really catches his attention. He finds a mana stone in the head, which Eartha thinks makes him very lucky. The stones are formed from the mana that should exit the monster's body and coagulate at the moment of death, and not all will have one. The probability of this happening is about 17%, which can increase if the class is lower or the opposite. Once again, she declares that he's very lucky. Yoo Ilhan is impressed by the size of the stone. Remembering something, he asks if the requirement to evolve the resting ability wasn't a stone from a Class 3 monster. Then he just needs to fulfill the rest of the conditions to evolve. But remembering the Empress, he believes he'll have to share the stone with her. The girl, still feeling sick, says she got 1.5 million exp and asks how much he received. She thinks the contribution rate was 2-to-1, feeling she received too much, but the boy says she was a great help. The Empress is happy to hear that, then asks if he's going to tell her his name. He freezes like a fool, but quickly she asks if she should keep calling him Sungin Bolt, and he shouts his real name. She says he should keep the stone and that she just wants to take half the body if he does the rest of the cutting, since mana is about 6 parts that should balance things. The boy is shocked that she agreed to that. He thinks all that work only earned him half the monster. Out of nowhere, she asks what he thinks is the most important job on Earth. That leaves the boy thoughtful, and she asks if it's mage or sorcerer, but denies her own question. Kang Mirai says he's the butcher craftsman. To her, it makes no sense to take down the beast if you can't properly collect the rewards. With her admirable beauty, she says his skill is very valuable. While Yoo Ilhan does his part with the cuts, Kang Mirai is on the phone taking care of business. Eartha says the girl must have many connections and that you should maintain a close relationship with her, which he still can't agree with. To her, it's very hard to find a human with skill, pride, and story. But for him, getting close to someone is a very difficult thing. Finally, Yoo Ilhan finishes the cuts. Exhausted, he announces the end of his work. Kang Mirai orders everyone to carry the pieces to the truck. She then praises the boy and says that without him, she wouldn't have been able to get rid of the monster and we've suffered much more damage. He also thanks her for the help. With a serene look, the Empress asks him to forget about the party formation. That's the worst blow he could have received. He questions whether he did something wrong or something she didn't like. But she says she feels like a very neat person, and with him being so strong, the distance between them is too great. The Empress says she will soon reach his level and then ask him to be her partner. To not let his pride sink, he says he'll think about it when the time comes. And she understands that, as always, he's logical. With a handshake, they dissolve the party. All of this makes him feel like he's regained his freedom and lost a teammate at the same time. The party status window also disappears. The driver calls for Mirai so they can leave soon. She asks Fred for a moment. Then she goes to Yoo Ilhan asking if she can have his number. Mirai's beauty is too much for him. She promises not to tell anyone else his name or even his number. Even enchanted by her beauty, Yoo Ilhan thinks whether he should really trust her after everything they've been through. He knows the answer, and of course he can trust Kang Mirai. Yoo Ilhan gives her his number. He enters his contact in her phone. Back in the car, she thanks him and says she will call him again. He's touched by a woman asking for his number for the first time, and Eartha, who sees it all, says it's very sad that he's happy with so little. But he simply defends that he just earned the right to be confidential in front of someone. Back at his workplace, Yoo Ilhan looks at the status window. He's still impressed that he managed to defeat a Class 3 monster, and then says that karma is really real. But Eartha doesn't care one bit about his optimistic mindset. Then he asks why, since it sounded like a subtle comment. But of course she denies it, even if it's true. Back to business, he says the problem now is the troll. He's never heard of one on Earth. And Eartha says if he were someone else, he surely would have gone to the other world, and in tears, he replies that it's not like he chose not to go. With the mana concentration on Earth rising, trolls will soon start to appear. He understands that's why he needs red troll fluid to evolve the resting ability, because the liquid has healing properties. And Eartha confirms that. But with a scary face, she says it will only be possible if he's resistant to the deadly poison. A bit suspicious, he asks why things seem to get worse every time she speaks. To him, the biggest problem was the dormant Class 2 monster, since he needs to eliminate it in a single blow. And that reminds him that he needs to reinforce his weapons a bit. He doesn't even get a chance to ask to borrow the magic stones because Eartha immediately refuses. As always angry, she says that would cause imbalance, and that she already did him a big favor by lending the hammer and anvil. She demands he make a good weapon before she asks for them back, and agreeing, he says he'll do what he can for now. Analyzing the harpoon, he realizes he can use it again. It just needs a small repair, being quite strong. However, he doesn't know what to do with the muscles and tendon. Suddenly, the two pieces fall from his hand and are devoured by the eternal flame. Yoo Ilhan laments losing them since he intended to eat them to become strong and resistant. And to provoke her, Eartha says he would have rotted before that. What's happening catches his attention. He realizes the eternal flame changed the tendon. Turning to Eartha, the boy asks her to teach him about it. But she only says it's not her specialty, though in truth, not even she knew. Yoo Ilhan orders the flame to stop. With a tool, he picks up what's left of the tendon. He's amazed at what the small piece has become. Because of its incredible elasticity, Yoo Ilhan decides to call it Giant's Rubber Band. Eartha asks what he'll do with it. The thing, besides being elastic and strong, is fire-resistant for being heated in the eternal flame and also resistant to shocks and water. So he decides he'll make a pile bunker from the material. Trying to understand, Eartha asks if it's a weapon similar to a firearm but uses spikes instead of bullets. If the boy uses tendons, it'll be like a crossbow. The weapon is hard to use, but its attack power is high, especially its piercing power. Creating more of these new super bullets, Yoo Ilhan will use them instead of gunpowder. This will be the greatest energy power with a return of even more force. Half-joking, Eartha says she can't help but acknowledge the infinite energy he has. But in truth, she's surprised he always has ideas and is even excited about it. The boy's idea is to adapt things to the limit of his strength, using leopard teeth for the bullets. Everything is finely polished by him. The leopard teeth will be used as bullets because they're much stronger and sharper than bones. Observing his creation, he gets the idea to make it perfect by reinforcing it with a mana stone. Eartha says if he's confident enough to fight another monster before trolls appear, he can use it at any time. He just replies he'll save it, since he has no desire to fight another Class 3 monster. But almost shedding tears, he promises the pile bunker he'll find a mana stone to make it complete. The weapon is ready, and he just needs to put the giant rubber on the tooth. He divided the weapon's power into 3 levels, making a great effort to move the super-resistant weapon. He even calls for his mother's help. Meanwhile, Eartha has fun at how weak he looks and jokes that his mother is in the other world. He finally manages to load the weapon and asks her how long it took. She replies it was only 2 seconds. Because of this complication, Yoo Ilhan thinks he won't be able to use it often in real combat. He says he called for his mom when loading it to level 1, and he'll probably have to call for his ancestors when it's on level 3. The boy calls for his mother and whole family to load more bullets. And Eartha says he took 10 seconds for level 2 and 2 minutes for level 3. The weapon being impressive, the fact that a miraculous system was made without magic or gunpowder is notable, but still, it's difficult and inconvenient to use. What really surprises the boy is also having alpha and beta options even without having used creation mana to reduce the loading time. Eartha says that with the tooth loaded, the weapon has over 3 meters in length, which is a notable disadvantage. With that comment, Yoo Ilhan says she has a great talent for being pessimistic, but the weapon will only be for when a giant monster appears. Infuriating Eartha, he says he now needs to make one for small monsters. She begs him to take a break. The underground destruction trap needs destruction. It's complete, and with creation mana level 24, he can now create better artifacts with little mana. Another artifact he created is thrown to the angels. They analyze how good the trap is and how it might cause an overflow. It's the 17th destruction trap he's made, and originally he only needed to make 11. But thinking it over, she now thinks he needs to make 8 more, and he understands it's because of the overflow thing. Eartha says he's quick to catch on, making the boy laugh her irritation. She admits the traps he made are really good. The other traps around the world were also reinforced. If all the monsters are drawn to just one strong destruction trap, then the others won't be used. Eartha asks what he thinks might happen if he keeps spreading mana when there are no monsters to attract. Not quite sure, he says maybe humans will get caught in the trap or something like that. Being wrong, Eartha says the random Akashic records and the mana from the traps will collide, and that will result in new monsters being born. Yoo Ilhan asks her to explain it like he's 5 years old. She says a super strong monster will bite the trap and appear. Realizing the danger, he understands how terrible an overflow can be, so he even prefers to keep fighting Class 3 monsters. He was able to defend himself against the shadow leopard because he had the stealth ability. Even so, he couldn't have done it alone. So he knows he can't face another monster like that with the power he currently has. Eartha says that's why they must reduce the number of overflow traps. That irritates one of the angels because so many unexpected things can happen on Earth, especially with Yoo Ilhan involved in those events. She says Eartha knows how to manage her human very well. But Eartha says the boy isn't a human they're managing and that she only received orders to help him. She adds that she never received orders to supervise or limit his abilities. Feeling offended, Shuta says she is very inflexible. That was enough to make her angry. Eartha then conjures a sword and, pointing it at him, tells him to focus instead of telling her what to do. Her eyes are threatening as she stares him down. Her irritation is because he told her what she should do, which makes Shuta growl in annoyance, while Yoo Ilhan is scared, having never seen Eartha like that. The other angels tell him not to meddle in something that's not his business and to focus on his duties. The angel asks Eartha not to be so crazy, saying he doesn't think Shuta meant to interrupt her work. Seeing the little scuffle, Yoo Ilhan thinks these beings aren't so different from humans despite being superior, and that Eartha is also like a normal person. The angels say their goodbyes after finishing the job. Eartha is sitting on Yoo Ilhan's head. A little embarrassed, Eartha says she showed him a side of herself she shouldn't have. But he thinks it was a good thing, surprised that angels can express emotions. He doesn't know if she's smart or silly. Eartha says that a long time ago, angels surpass even the best emotions. But he remembers the other angel and doesn't believe that's true. Then Eartha says that's because he's too good, which makes him annoyed, wanting to know what she really wants with him. Smiling, Eartha says his talent and skills are great enough to make even an angel jealous, leaving him very impressed with her words. He laughs and says she has a habit of overestimating him, but she says he's the one who always puts himself down. She thinks he's very humble, but that can be a good thing. After all, if he believes in his talent and abilities, he could become a god, which irritates her to even think about. The boy tries to know what she's thinking, but she refuses to say anything. It's time for her to tell him 2 things about the reward for completing the destruction trap mission, but he immediately says he'll only negotiate for good materials. However, she says he'll change his mind once he hears what she has to say. Eartha says that the dungeon that appeared on Earth has a new type of metal. Excited about this new material, he asks her to hurry up and tell him where it is. He walks calmly through the street until he finds it strange that there aren't many people around. Always by his side, Eartha asks if it reminds him of the days when he was alone. He replies that he feels it a little. This time it's a bit different. This time it's not like he doesn't know when people will come back, and that there are people like the Empress who are still on Earth fighting, so he's not that alone, which makes Eartha satisfied with the answer. The path continues into the forest. Then he sees a strong blue light and asks if it's the entrance to the dungeon. He's happy that it's in Korea and that he only had to walk there since in a state of emergency, he couldn't travel. Since no one has boats or planes, he wondered if he'd have to make one, and his construction ideas always impress Eartha. Back at the dungeon entrance, he touches the blue light. However, a red window appears. It's a warning that only someone level 50 or above can enter. This throws Yoo Ilhan into despair since he's not that level. With everything under control, Eartha asks who he thinks she is. And innocently, he replies that she's a rude angel and a property invader. Irritated, she says she's a superior being who creates and manages the destruction traps. With a small wave of her hand, the restriction is lifted. She says they can enter now, and happily the boy says she's more useful than he thought. Possessed with rage, she says that right now she's a huge help to him. Yoo Ilhan tries again in the dungeon, and without the restriction, he's able to enter. The boy is impressed by the place. Everything is so bright and filled with stones embedded all over. Curious, he asks how it works, and Eartha simply says that he's the one who made it. Suddenly, she starts a pop quiz, and the first question is how new monsters can appear on Earth. Even surprised, he replies that she explained the mana in the atmosphere needs to reach a certain concentration, a very basic answer. The next question is what can appear in neglected rice jars. His answer is rice weevils, small bugs that attack the rice. Eartha asks what shows up in dirty rooms with food leftovers all over, and obviously it's disgusting cockroaches. She says monsters are like those too and appear in environments perfect for them, and Yoo Ilhan wonders why she chose those examples. However, he wants to know why she told him that. Then she just says he'll have to defeat the dungeon monsters and extract the heart, and that's the metal that appeared on Earth. That catches him by surprise, leaving him terrified. Yoo Ilhan asks why she only told him this now. He's still shocked by the revelation. With all his mining equipment, Yoo Ilhan is stunned that the metal is the monster's heart. This causes outrage since he was excited to mine. She says she only said he could get the metal, but never mentioned anything about mining. Sadness hits again since he was all set up with mining gear. But not everything is sadness. Then he reveals he brought a magic pouch with spatial expansion and always carries it when there's an opportunity. Eartha says it's a reward and the item has a capacity limit and the magic won't reduce its weight. But he has no issue carrying dozens of tons. His attitude makes Eartha think he's insane. Yoo Ilhan notices that the things look like walls. Amazed, he asks Eartha if they're all monsters. She confirms and says he seems very disappointed. To him, it feels like rushing to mine and ending up getting ambushed. Eartha asks what exactly he wants. and his simple wish is for a new experience. Yoo Ilhan pulls from his pouch his equipment that should work better than a spear against the metal monster. The heavy battle smasher is a rare item with two sides. The hammer side has 1,250 attack power and the axe side has 1,270.1. As an option, weight can increase by 50% after a hit, with 1,350 durability. Even Eartha says it's a good idea since strength is guaranteed by being made of shadow leopard bones. Besides that, it has alpha and beta options even without being crafted with mana. He makes any rare and high-quality object. For Yoo Ilhan, even though it has good options, it won't mean much once he gets the new metal. With no one else to give it to, he even feels like a waste. He feels like he's putting his silly feelings of futility into it. Eartha disagrees, saying he's giving it his all. With the hammer side, he strikes the monster, causing a critical hit. He gains 137,928 exp and the record of a level 51 metal heart. The critical hit leveled up to 4. Yoo Ilhan reached the max level for weapon technique, able to evolve the skill since he has the required items. The boy is surprised the monster was defeated in just one hit. There's a shining piece on the ground, and Eartha says it's the heart, being the hardest part of the body where all the mana gathers. A metal heart can reinforce a part of the body with mana if danger is detected. That's why usually one distracts while the other ambushes from behind. For a Class 2 monster, Yoo Ilhan found it quite easy, so he grabs the metal from the shattered stone body. Staying alert, he knows danger comes when least expected. He yells that people get attacked just when they think it's too easy, and he knows this from novels. But in reality, there's no ambush or plot twist. He simply levels up to 38, catching him off guard. Strength increased by 2, while dexterity, endurance, and mana increased by 1. But everything feels so boring to him, which makes Eartha call him abnormal. Walking through the dungeon, everything seems the same to him, and he has to walk 10 to 20 minutes in search of a monster. And even then, the creatures are taken out with just one blow. Everything is so boring with no adventure or excitement, just pure work that's driving him insane. Eartha asks how he managed to reach max level in weapon technique after spear arts and combat. Walking a bit further, the boy sees something that finally catches his attention. A huge level 74 metal heart monster. It's bigger than any other he has seen. Eartha says the monster is called Great Metal Heart, and he doesn't think the person naming things is very creative. But at least for him, it's finally test time. His choice is the pile bunker, charged to level 3, and the angel thinks how he has something for every type of situation. Ready to test his new weapon, the boy runs toward the monster. He makes a huge leap to not miss his aim, then fires one of his special bullets. The attack causes a huge explosion, completely destroying the creature. With that, he gains 548,701 exp and a record of a level 74 Great Metal Heart. The weapon is good, but he can't use it the same way again, and now his big problem is how to reuse the bullet. Eartha tells him to worry about that later and to grab the dropped heart. Yoo Ilhan is surprised by the size of the metal heart. It's more durable than the others. But Eartha says that the Metal Heart King, the monster's final form, is harder than anything in the world. However, he's not around since he's a Class 4 monster, and laughing, the boy asks her not to jinx it like she always does. She says it's just a coincidence. Since these monsters are new to Earth, it's rare to find one, and she believes there won't be another. But that's what she thought, because another one appears, leaving her frustrated that her predictions never work on Earth. The boy puts away the pile bunker to use the weapon Vehement 1000 Bomb Hammers. A unique item with 1,974 attack power, 3/3 charge, a 30% increased shot diffusion rate, and 1,120 durability. He attacks the monster, and Eartha thinks he's the only person in the world who gets happy about fighting. Yoo Ilhan and Eartha spend a few more days in the cave like this. During that time, he gained 579,192 exp, reaching level 40 with increases in endurance, strength, dexterity, and mana by 1. The dungeon is clear, and Eartha says he can come back anytime he needs more. The boy hopes to find the Metal Heart King next time. Something catches Eartha's attention, and confused, he asks what's wrong. She replies that she's just surprised because the destruction trap used for the dungeon is an old one. The boy accepts what she says, but judging by her tone, he bets something big is going to happen. Yoo Ilhan has learned from experience that if Eartha is too casual about something, it's because something bad is coming. Finally, they exit the dungeon, and the boy is quite tired. He notices something approaching, and it's the same 3 angels as always. So the installation of destruction traps across the entire Earth has been completed. Hundreds of thousands of dungeons placed around the planet were activated one by one. Monsters disappeared little by little. Once inside the dungeon, people began to feel safe. The news broadcast begins with the report that nations in Asia are once again at peace. On the other hand, there's information that missions from the other world are decreasing. With the end of the news, the TV is turned off. Eartha believes the superiors are limiting the missions, and with that, people might return to Earth to eliminate monsters. While working, Yoo Ilhan comments that this must be the reason for all the noise and believes his parents might have returned too. However, that's not what Eartha is concerned about, and she asks the boy to show her what he's working on and whether he has options. He's not too sure since he didn't check. He ended up sleeping, having done everything without rest left him a bit exhausted. But with the mission over, the boy knows they'll return to retrieve the tools, so he plans to finish everything before that. Proud of his creation, he shows the armor made from metal hearts, frighteningly durable and stealthy, a legendary black plate armor with 4,800 attack power, with a 40% extra defense power option and 30% extra attack power in the case of an ambush. A masterpiece crafted by a high-skill artisan and made of metal hearts. Yoo Ilhan is surprised by all this information and asks Eartha if it's possible to have 3 options. She confirms it is from this point onward, with a mischievous smile. Ambush attack power increases by 10% in stealth mode, 30% due to the armor effect, and 50% when using a spear. However, Eartha finds that part scary, having to work to increase the options he has. It's almost impossible for an item without mana craft to have 3 options. This is all thanks to his title as a creator, accomplishing the impossible. Concerned, Eartha warns him not to sell items with 3 options to others, as it's dangerous to reveal those abilities. Then Yoo Ilhan asks what if it's with 4 options, which annoys Eartha since she's talking about something serious. Anyway, she declares that items with 3 options will be called Gamma Option, and the boy says she picked a pretty weak name. With the rest, he made weapons, and Eartha asks if he won't be using the steel spear anymore. But the boy decided to retire it for now. The weapons and armor he won't use anymore go into the Eternal Flame. He's surprised when the flame grows even larger. The Eternal Flame is a growth-type flame and appears to be growing very quickly. Looking pleased, the boy asks what it's for, and the angel replies that its use is for everything. Tired, Yoo Ilhan knows he won't be able to stay awake any longer. He then announces that he's going to bed. Eartha is left alone in the workshop. A new day arrives for Yoo Ilhan. Yawning, still sleepy, he leaves the room, until something catches his attention. He is surprised by his parents' return, and his mother tells him to wash up and sit down to eat. Seeing his parents makes him really happy, especially his mother's cooking. She tells him to eat slowly and asks if he didn't eat any of the food she left in the fridge. The boy replies that her food is better, as he only survived on dried meat during the 2 weeks he spent in the dungeon. Suddenly, the father stands up and says he has to work before the monster alarm goes off. The boy is impressed that he still has to work. With the end of financial support, he needs to return to work and resume his position. Worried, he says one of the employees quit to become a hunter, but he can't do something like that. Yoo Ilhan then remembers something. Before he leaves, the boy offers his father some protection against monsters. The man is surprised the item has such a good defense option and asks where he got something like that. He explains that he just happened to find it and that both he and his mother also have one. The father thanks him, then says goodbye to the family. With just the 2 of them left, his mother comments that the colleges are reopening and asks if he'll go back. Shaking his head, the boy says there's no need to enroll right now. Then she says that whatever he wants is fine. That reassures Yoo Ilhan, knowing he has his mother's support. Taking advantage of the moment, he pulls out of his pouch protection against Class 2 monsters. But what interests her is the pouch. Back in his workshop, as soon as he opens the door, the boy is in shock. Everything changed in just one night. The place is more beautiful and has better equipment. The furnace has a new shield. The new tools are even shining. Eartha says that heaven decided to reward him for his accomplishments with tools made of metals that will only appear when Earth evolves 2 levels. His eyes sparkle at those materials, knowing he'll put them to good use. All of his stats are increased by 5, and he also received an extra reward for perfect mission completion. Catching the boy's attention, Eartha says that's not all yet. Then she presents the skill record book for resistance to deadly poisons. This allows him to ignore even poison from a Class 4 monster. Even happier, he asks if the book isn't rare, but at least now he'll be able to eat troll meat. And as the final reward, she says she'll reveal the location of the troll dungeon. Eager for the location, she says it's in the US. Some people walk through the halls of Ancient Airport. Yoo Ilhan is excited. It's the first time he's ever taken a flight. Meanwhile, Eartha warns that maybe he's forgetting something. Then she yells that a visa and a passport are needed to travel abroad, and he has neither. Aware of that, he simply tells her not to worry. After all, his plan is to sneak in. Confident, he even dances and sings about being a smuggler, which makes Eartha think he's way too noisy. In one of the plane seats, the boy says that not even modern society's security system detects his stealth. A flight attendant passes by with a soda cart. With his skill, Yoo Ilhan grabs a Coke for himself, which leaves her confused about what just happened. Through the window, he spots a fighter jet. Reading the guide, Eartha says it's a safety measure in case a monster appears in the sky, hence the high cost and low number of passengers. To get to Arizona, location of the troll dungeon, there's a layover in Los Angeles. He's calm, thinking that this time things are going smoothly. But every time Yoo Ilhan says something like that, something bad happens. People start screaming that there's a monster in the area. Eartha tries to say something, but the boy cuts her off, already knowing she'll say there must have been a mistake. This annoys her. The boy says that since even an angel didn't foresee this, they'll have to take care of the problem. The angel warns that this isn't a normal incident. It's an overflow, and her prediction has finally come true. A phenomenon that occurs when a destruction trap explodes for unknown reasons. Its result is a mass of mutant monsters stronger than the previous ones. The main characteristic is that the trap's energy is absorbed by the surroundings, altering the environment. They observe that part of the airport has turned into a rocky desert, and he wants confirmation of his understanding. Eartha also says that an overflow happens when the world is evolving and dungeons are forming. This can occur as a side effect of a great magic or a dungeon extinction. But for her, that's not the reason this time. The big problem is that mutants created from an overflow can react with other dungeons, triggering the same thing. In other words, she says that if he lets even one monster escape here, another overflow will happen elsewhere. The boy is running, agreeing with what she says, until he stops and, alarmed, asks if that's another prediction. Yoo Ilhan says he bets he'll lose a monster here that will cause everything she just said, and then he'll have to work a lot to fix the problem. Eartha says something like that must be prevented, and for that reason, she'll give him a mission. Before she can even mention the reward, the boy accepts. The place is still in chaos. People are running everywhere. Meanwhile, a guard fires at the monster, a kind of lizard that keeps repeating that it must remember. Watching it, Yoo Ilhan says it looks like a mutant monster, but Eartha says it's a class 2 with a special ability, and you should stay alert. But the boy is confident in his armor and spear, a unique Black Reaper's spear with 2,400 attack power with options for increased critical hit and 30% more damage in ambushes. A weapon made entirely of metal hearts, designed for just one person, with a Reaper's power to hide in darkness and take lives. Yoo Ilhan strikes the monster, causing a critical hit and gaining 418,703 exp. He also obtains the record of a level 62 flame lizard. The creature falls to the ground and the boy doesn't find a mana stone. He has to cut something. He'll store it later in his pouch. People stand frozen, shocked that he took down the monster so fast, and they stare at his armor. Another monster appears from behind, and Yoo Ilhan is worried because even with stealth, people can still see him. The giant lizard spits a fireball at him, and the boy dodges to avoid getting roasted. It manages to destroy the wall pretty easily, so Yoo Ilhan decides to take the fight outside. However, he gets hit by another fireball. Someone shouts that he won't be able to make it. Yoo Ilhan is totally fine. He says it's no problem to simply fight while taking all the hits. The boy calls the creature out, spear ready. People keep watching the fight. An older man says they can't just stand there. He says anyone who can fight should form a group, and the rest should evacuate the area. Eartha comments that it seems they've forgotten about him even after the attack, and even the monsters are ignoring him. People with abilities begin attacking the monsters. Chaos is everywhere, while some fight to defend others. Yoo Ilhan stays still, observing everything that's happening. In the battle, there's another knight in armor. The giant lizard spits a fireball, and Yoo Ilhan passes by, shielding him from the fireball. The knight even tries to thank him, but he's already out of sight. Yoo Ilhan finishes the creature with a single blow, and it falls to the ground, saying that the strong warrior has been recorded. In defiance, the boy says he's the one who should be feared. With a powerful skill, he pulls out the spear, gaining 240,918 exp. This draws the attention of other monsters, who turn on him saying they must devour him to evolve. Yoo Ilhan thinks these creatures are crazy and wonders if it's because of the overflow, since to him the monsters seem cuckoo. The knight appears and thanks him for saving her life, and Yoo Ilhan realizes the voice is that of a woman. In response, the boy simply says to watch her back from now on during the battle. Charmed, she finds him handsome. Embarrassed, Yoo Ilhan thinks he knew it, only for Eartha to remind him he's wearing a mask. Another monster is finished off, and the boy gains 431,729 exp. With that, he reaches level 44, strength increases by 2, and dexterity, endurance, and mana increase by 1. The boy comments that the lizards won't stop appearing. Eartha advises him to finish off the leader who is the cause of the change, so he can then move on to the others. Finally, she says he must do it quickly, or they won't stop appearing, to which the boy says that's easy to say. And of course, Eartha uses her ironic tone, and asks if it's easier for him to face each one of them instead. The monsters continue with their plan to devour him. Yoo Ilhan goes back to fighting them, dodging their fireballs, and using the spear to finish them off, getting many hits with each monster that comes. The people watching notice how amazing the boy is. A paladin even says it's hard to fight in a group, surprised that Yoo Ilhan is facing them all alone, making a great leap until he's at good height. The boy looks for the leader, finding him easily because he looks very different. He then attacks the group of lizards, causing massive destruction, and his level becomes 45. Dexterity goes up by 2 levels, while strength, endurance, and mana go up by 1. Yoo Ilhan says that at this pace, he still can't control mana when the title change comes. Beside him, Eartha says he'll be fine until level 100, and that she noticed his level up speed is quite slow. The boy remains still when the red armored paladin tells him to move because the creatures explode on contact with humans. But the only thing the boy catches is that he is Korean, and then he understands about the explosion. But knowing that makes him more excited, so Yoo Ilhan grabs a creature by the neck, and after that, throws it, making it explode. The two watching are impressed, and the paladin advises his companion not to do that. Back to the fight that's still going on. The leader slams against the ground. This causes parts of the ground to rise. Yoo Ilhan jumps just in time not to be hit and believes he can balance the fight easily. He makes another Moby Dick joke, which Eartha asks him to stop. People watch as the explosion occurs and think Yoo Ilhan was taken out. Soon he appears and says he knew the rock would explode, and Eartha reminds him that people can't hear him. From his magic bag, he pulls out the new unique weapon, Flash of Light Pile Bunker. The attack power varies according to level. First with 1,400, second with 2,100, third with 3,300, and fourth with 4,500. The weapon is made from the bones, teeth, and tendons of a shadow leopard by a skilled artisan. Yoo Ilhan fires a powerful blast. The bullet hits right in the leader's eye. The power is so strong it causes a massive explosion of light, and the monster is thrown to the ground, causing a critical hit. Noticing the leader is in danger, the remaining monsters charge at him, but he is defended by other fighters who come to help him. However, the creatures quickly get rid of them, and are then hit by another of Yoo Ilhan's weapons. He uses the Dark Greatsword of the Foolish Giant, a unique item with an attack power of 2,300. Despite his powerful weapon, Eartha says he still seems weaker. Either way, he reaches the maximum level in swordsmanship, and can now evolve with specific ingredients. Suddenly, the leader, badly injured on the ground, speaks, saying that the strong human must be absorbed. Then something's about to happen. A crack in the ground lights up, and the entire floor begins to rise. The creatures plan to blow up the entire area. A large part of the ground is lifted. Yoo Ilhan is on the platform created along with the monster. The creature says the human's place is at the top of the world. With just one strike, the boy silences the monster. He gains 1,897,565 X per eliminating the leader. Yoo Ilhan wants to understand how it's possible that creatures with a level higher than the shadow leopard can change the environment. The boy lands on the ground after the leader's defeat. People wait for his return. They praise him for his incredible skill. Concerned, the Red Knight asks if he's injured while the one in the white cloak offers to heal him. He realizes that the two are the Korean couple he saw before. Suddenly, Eartha says she feels waves of envy coming from him and wants to know why. He asks her to be quiet because she doesn't understand and says he kind of hates couples. Passing by them, the boy says he's fine and asks them to take care of the rest to avoid the problem of one escaping. The girl asks Hajin if he thinks Yoo Ilhan has gone through the tertiary title change, and he believes not. She still finds it impressive that Yoo Ilhan is still so much stronger, even than him. More monsters are eliminated by Yoo Ilhan, who gains 407,633 X. Covered in the creature's red fluid, he says that even if he works hard, he bets some lizard will survive. He thinks that when he's sure he's eliminated all of them, just one that survives will probably look at him from the airplane. And that after that, the creature will go into the forest until he returns to Los Angeles later. That another mutant incident will occur because of him, and shocked, Eartha asks what kind of movie that is, but he assures her he won't let that happen. More lizards are eliminated along the way. Yoo Ilhan notices two lizards trying to flee. He leaps and reaches them, then uses his weapon to split them in half. With those eliminations, he gains a total of 842,866 XP. The boy believes that all have already been dealt with. Each part of the creatures is stored in his bag, and Eartha asks if he's sure he can do that. The job is finished, and he simply observes. There's a lot of red fluid along the way. Suddenly, the ground beneath his feet sinks, and he realizes it's heavy. Soon he begs Eartha to give him an option to control the weight of his bag. The proxy mission is complete with all stats increased by 2. For being the most successful in the mission, the boy earns a special reward. Eartha receives a signal and performs it. She goes to the boy's bag, which shines with a bright blue light. Another light appears in the sky, and from there, the angels descend. She was the one who summoned them to help with Manacraft. Looking at the heavy bag on the ground, Paitha laughs, saying she understood what she wants. The three angels use magic together, and the bag undergoes divine intervention. It's Eartha who hands the bag to Yoo Ilhan, who is happy to be able to control its weight as he wishes. The two look at Paitha, puzzled by her reaction. Smiling, she says she was watching him and that the person she's supervising was also in battle. This surprises him, and he asks if there are other humans being helped by angels besides him, but they do it to protect rare abilities. The girl is named Mayuna, and she asks that Yoo Ilhan help her next time he gets the chance, as she was blessed by the goddess of beauty. But Eartha asks her not to tell Mayuna about Yoo Ilhan's abilities because that information needs to be protected. The only thing Paitha says is that she's never seen Eartha worry so much about an inferior being. She asks a bold question, if Eartha has a crush on him, and warns her she can't or Rita will kill her, leaving Eartha completely furious. While flying back to the sky, Paitha asks the boy to be kind to Mayuna. Curious, Eartha asks if he's going to help the girl, but he denies it and says he's an insult. Yoo Ilhan says he could never approach someone first. Ending the conversation, she says she'll now give the rest of the reward. Eartha says it's a skill called superhuman strength that can be used without mana. The boy receives the skill and says it sounds like a monster ability. She tells him that with this, he has now learned all human skills. Mayuna throws herself into her airplane seat, then looks around searching for Yoo Ilhan. She tells Hajin that Paitha said he would be on the same plane, but she still hasn't found him. The paladin asks her to sit properly and fasten her seatbelt. Sitting in the seat behind them is Yoo Ilhan, disguised, observing them, and Mayuna says that it matters and asks if he's jealous, but he quickly denies it. Yoo Ilhan says he believes he'll end up running into the two again. But Eartha just asks him to stop acting like his life is a movie, and he asks if she's never heard of Chekhov's gun. The Russian actor Anton Chekhov said that if in the first act you hang a gun on a wall, then in the next it must be fired. Mayuna praises the food, finding it very delicious. Then Yoo Ilhan asks her to leave when she finishes, but she just asks him to make more of the delicious thing that melts in her mouth. And all of this is just the meat of the scorpion monster. And to understand that, it is necessary to go back in time. Finally arriving at the location, the entrance to the troll dungeon. And all of this impresses Yoo Ilhan. The entrance is a very bright hole. Something feels strange and Eartha asks what it is, but Yoo Ilhan reminds her that she is the superior being here. Worried, she says she'll take a look, finding everything odd since she heard it was a normal dungeon. Looking more closely at the dungeon entrance, Eartha says she understands what happened and that it's a very rare phenomenon. Two destruction traps were coincidentally placed in the same location, causing two dungeons to merge into one large one. She says a dungeon like this must have monsters beyond trolls and asks him to be careful. But he didn't hear her because he tried to enter and was blocked by a notification stating that only level 50 can enter. She says there are two bosses in the field. Yoo Ilhan is impressed by the dungeon, which is a highland, and by the troll he spotted. Eartha asks if all he can see are monsters. The troll is very tired, so it lies down under the tree. Yoo Ilhan is impressed that it fell asleep in 3 seconds and asks if it's a skill. Eartha confirms, and he understands why the red fluid from them is necessary to evolve the resting skill. With an evil laugh, the boy runs toward the troll and eliminates it with just one strike, earning 560,705 XP and the level 72 troll record. 1/500th monster heart and 3/500th liters of troll blood. Yoo Ilhan says it was very easy, but Eartha counters that it was only easy for him. Excited for the adventure, the boy says they should go hunt 500 more creatures. Hajin and Mayuna also arrive at the troll dungeon. She is impressed that the entry limit is only level 50. Paitha, who accompanies them, asks her to be careful because you never know what could happen in a dungeon. The knight asks them to hurry because he wants to leave as soon as he gets the scorpion venom, but Mayuna is excited, thinking it's a date. Meanwhile, Paitha begs them to listen and be careful. The two enter the dungeon for the mission. Meanwhile, Yoo Ilhan waits for the food to be ready. He is next to his pitched tent. As soon as it's ready, the boy grabs it and eats as if it were the most delicious thing. Eartha just says he wants to satisfy his hunger with troll meat, and Eartha warns that it's poisonous. He knows, but excitedly says it's really good, more chewable than beef, and tasty. Another advantage is that it quickly increases the deadly poison resistance skill. And Eartha says that means the meat he's eating is very poisonous, but he is unconcerned since he has the skill and will be fine anyway. With dinner over, the campfire is put out. With a full belly, he lies down near a tree. The food improved his cooking skill. Yoo Ilhan comments that they've been there for 5 days but have only seen one troll, and even with campfires and everything he does, none appear. He asks Eartha if she doesn't also find that strange, and she says she has a theory, but she's not sure yet. Her theory is that the stealth effect completely hid the smell of fire and meat, and that he even fooled God. On a new day, they are hunting the 500th troll. A lot has happened, and he's eaten many trolls, which has made him bored and wanting to eat something else. However, Eartha says he couldn't stop because his deadly poison resistance and cooking skill increased. In desperation, Yoo Ilhan asks her to stop reading his mind. Without patience, she tells him to finish off the troll. The boy strikes, and with just one hit gains 572,395 XP. However, he receives a notification that he cannot become level 50 without having a secondary class. All records obtained will only be calculated after the secondary class has been chosen. The only thing left is to show him the path to follow according to the achievements he has obtained so far. Eartha says many things can change, and finally it is time for her to explain. The blood thrower specialist is the next level he has now, and this will greatly enhance the resources he has. The battle expert, on the other hand, is experienced in all weapons and his own body can be used as one. The berserker is a warrior who does not leave the battlefield until either he or his opponent is dead. All three are strong and rare classes and will not be affected by mana, so he can choose any of them. But he wants to know about the Novice Reaper. However, she's not sure since she's never seen one before, and it's probably an exclusive class that might be something different from the name. And he thinks it might be like the Invisible Lancer, but Eartha corrects him that it's Blood Lancer. Then Yoo Ilhan simply chooses the Novice Reaper. Eartha says she figured he would do that since he likes mystery more than anyone else. He looks at his new status and needs to eliminate a Class 2 monster with an ambush hit 0 100th. As for Class 3 with an ambush hit 0 first. This throws the boy off with the difficulty. Now he understands why some people never get past level 50 after all. You have to eliminate a Class 3 monster with just one strike. With a sigh, he says he imagines it's not impossible. Eartha wants to know if there's a way, and for that he says he'd need to postpone evolving his resting skill. But if he uses the mana stone to reinforce the weapon with mana craft, it might work. As a test, he launches his strike and questions whether it could be enough. A voice behind him calls him an idiot, but as he turns, he realizes it's not directed at him. Megumin is in the claws of a sand scorpion, and all Yoo Ilhan wants to know is why it's in the highlands. Meanwhile, the girl in danger screams for help. Mayuna keeps screaming for help. Next to her is Paitha, who says this is why she asked them to be careful. Crying, she says she'll now only eat bell peppers and begs to be saved. Heijin comes right behind, trying to reach the creature. Meanwhile, Yoo Ilhan watches what's happening and asks why they're trying so hard with a weak monster. Grabbing his mask, the boy doesn't want to get involved with the couple. However, he can't act like he's not seeing anything. Hertha notices him picking up the skewer he used to prepare meals. Then he throws the steel skewer made from metal heart, leaving the angel shocked to learn that he used that material to make it. The skewer hits the creature, making it release Nayuna, and Yoo Ilhan runs just in time to catch the girl, then throws her for Heijin to catch. She lands on top of him, which he did not expect. Without wasting time, the boy runs after the monster and from his bag pulls out another weapon. He's within reach of the creature and prepares for the next attack, then hitting the scorpion with a critical hit, earning 668,938 exp and the record of a giant sand scorpion level 78. Yoo Ilhan is surprised by the monster's level for being higher than he expected. Then Eartha explains that the scorpion's main weapon is poison, and since he has resistance, the fight was easy. Looking at the defeated monster on the ground, he can only think about how good it must taste cooked, hoping it tastes like lobster. Heijin is knocked out on the ground since Yuna fell on top of him. Megumin notices Yoo Ilhan approaching, who then calls him the Black Knight. He's confused until Yuna shows him that he's trending on Instagram, known as the US government's Black Knight. Finally conscious, Heijin says some people say he's an FBI agent, but the girl says she thinks Black Knight is cooler. The conversation annoys Eartha, who says the internet is just a waste and that these evil things always ruin everything. Thinking about his business, Yoo Ilhan goes to evaluate the creature. Yuna says the boy is ignoring them, and Heijin thinks it's because he's going to dismantle the scorpion, finding it amazing. Night falls, and Yoo Ilhan prepares the meal using the scorpion's meat. The two are behind, drawn by the delicious smell, and Yuna remembers she hasn't eaten anything yet. The boy turns and says he can make a bit for them, but the meat is poisonous. Excited to eat, Yuna says she can fix that and uses her ability to remove the poison. She then extends her hand near the food, which begins to glow. A strange smoke comes out of the meat, leaving them impressed. Then the girl says they can eat, and Yoo Ilhan thinks about how both of them are beautiful with great abilities and how unfair God is. Then he says he heard the girl was blessed by the goddess of beauty and has an incredible divine power while he was abandoned for thousands of years. Yuna praises the food and his skill, once again calling him the Black Knight. Back to the present with full stomachs, they thank him for the food. The boy gathers the skewers as the meal ends. Excited, Yuna asks if he's not tired of working alone and proposes he join them. He says no. Impressed, she tells Heijin that she was rejected even though she's pretty, making the knight laugh. That makes Yoo Ilhan wonder if they're not a couple, since it wasn't the reaction he expected from one. Either way, Heijin thanks him for saving his companion and hands him a card so he can call and receive payment for what he did. Looking at the card, he notices it's similar to the one Kang Mirai gave him. That makes him consider the possibility that they're from the same company. Excited, Yuna also gives him her card, saying they're there for business and will soon return to Korea. That makes Heijin want to shut her mouth for giving out information like that, but the only thing Yoo Ilhan pays attention to is the identical card, thinking it might be from the same company. The knight drags Yuna away, complaining about how many times he told her not to give out personal information. Meanwhile, Yoo Ilhan, watching them, believes he'll end up meeting them again in the dungeon. Eartha asks him to stop with the predictions, but the truth is, the boy plans to follow them, saying he has no other choice, and anyway, the scorpion won't attack him. Meanwhile, Yuna is embarrassed for not being able to seduce Yoo Ilhan and believes it's because he's gay. She complains that it's very difficult being the two of them and wants to know if the boy wouldn't help if they only offered the meat. But Heijin asks what they would do if he wanted the venom or wanted to know what they use it for. That's why she needs to be careful with what she says. Yoo Ilhan is watching them with his skill, and he knows that Heijin also isn't being careful with his words. Mayuna asks if the mission from heaven is something they should hide and says she's sure the boy is kind because of everything he did for them. But Heijin only says he's surprised by how naive she is despite her age, and smiling, she says it's because he and Mirai protect her. Back to Yoo Ilhan, he wants an explanation for why there are scorpions there since it was said there were trolls, but even Eartha doesn't know, as she thought only trolls lived there. Without Yuna and Heijin noticing, a scorpion is about to attack. But luckily Yoo Ilhan is quick and gains another 697,290 XP, and Eartha can only think about how he used another skewer, and asks how many he made. The boy calls his creation an Aharskew. Yoo Ilhan is surprised they didn't notice the monster, which makes him worried even with a guardian angel. However, the power of an angel on Earth is limited, and even as a guardian, she isn't allowed to interfere much in human life. Laughing, the boy says they're not useful at all, making Eartha angry as she says she's a huge help to him. Meanwhile, Yuna is looking for the supergiant scorpion and Hajin corrects her, saying it's the death-chasing giant. Hearing the conversation, Yoo Ilhan is shocked by what he just saw, believing the name makes sense. Eartha also understands what he's referring to. Hajin is the next to notice, getting scared. Suddenly, a huge and dangerous scorpion appears. Finally, the beast is there. Its massive size leaves Yuna very impressed, and Hajin says it's not the time for that. He asks her to buff him, then, with a magic circle, the girl asks for him to become strong. Hajin is illuminated by a light that makes him powerful. Then he runs toward the monster. Seeing that it's a paladin and a healer, Yoo Ilhan believes they won't need his help, and even Eartha agrees they'll handle the problem. Now Yuna is cheerful, confident that Hajin will win this fight. Suddenly, a giant troll appears behind the girl, so with that, he'll probably have to help. Finally, Yuna notices the creature in horror. The monster roars, making her pale with fear. The girl runs scared and tells her Appa to run away. This is the perfect opportunity for Yoo Ilhan. With a super jump, he gains a view. This is his moment to strike. Then he simply fires a shot from his weapon, making the monster fall. The girl keeps running, not understanding anything, just like Hajin, who is following her. Yoo Ilhan is on top of the monster. His weapon, the pile bunker of unique grade with 5th level attack power, ends up breaking and the boy laments, as he had only used it once. But Eartha says it's his fault for worrying only about attack power and not about durability. Yoo Ilhan defends himself, saying he needs to be that strong to eliminate a tertiary class monster. Finally remembering the other problem, the boy says he's done and that they can continue with their own problem. Even the monster is left speechless. Hajin remembers his forgotten fight with the scorpion. The monster attacks, and luckily, he dodges. The paladin runs from the monster. Seeing that, Yuna offers the entire body of the monster to Yoo Ilhan, everything from the scorpion except the venom. They quickly make a deal, and the boy is satisfied. But that doesn't please Hajin, who, even in danger, doesn't want to accept it. But the girl shouts for him to be reasonable and accept the help. Not even having time to complain, the scorpion captures him. Yoo Ilhan asks if he just argued so he could help him. He cuts the scorpion's tail, making it fall to the ground. With another jump, he strikes the monster's back. The paladin is on the ground, impressed by the fight, until Yuna shouts for him to attack too. Quickly, he gets up and runs with his sword back into the fight, then striking the creature with a blow. Eartha observes his ability, realizing that he is influenced by the previous attack and becomes stronger. In other words, she explains that the paladin used his power. Yoo Ilhan asks if it's a mana skill and thinks it's weaker than he expected, and Eartha defends him, saying not everyone is a monster like him. The boy continues his fight with the scorpion and even asks if the creature knows about his special skill, finishing by saying that it's hitting the same spot again and thus delivering another blow to the monster, gaining 2,479,989 XP and the record of death-chasing giant level 95. He dismantles the creature piece by piece and hands over to the couple the part that contains the venom gland. Meanwhile, a fight breaks out between guardian angels, and Eartha accuses Paitha of bringing the scorpion to force Yoo Ilhan to help. Looking at the creature, he thinks about the tasty meat, but first, he'll have to deal with the troll. Yet something catches his attention. Approaching, he finds a tertiary mana stone. Paitha is impressed, but still arguing, Eartha tells her not to get distracted. Yuna believes they must be very close friends, but Hajin thinks it seems more like a punishment. After winning the argument, Eartha congratulates Yoo Ilhan on the stone. The boy is excited to immediately complete his mission. It's Hajin who invites him to join the clan, also mentioning their return to Korea. Yuna says Mireille will be very happy, but once again he refuses to join. Together, they try to tell him the advantages of being part of a clan, and Paitha adds that humans improve their skills by completing what each other lacks. The boy doesn't accept and just wants to be left alone. This situation is stressful for him as he recalls the times when no one noticed him and says he just wants to be alone. Eartha watches this, concerned, realizing that all this confusion has triggered his post-traumatic stress, so she asks the others to leave. Even though they're sad, they accept his response but ask him to get in touch. But Yoo Ilhan hopes to never see any of them again and celebrates that they're gone so he can have his stealth ability back. Eartha says he really does whatever he wants. Back to work, he collects the stone to complete his mission to evolve the resting skill. Everything is gathered for the evolution. Yoo Ilhan then prepares for what's coming. A light surrounds the boy, and then he obtains transcendental regeneration. With this skill, the body and mind recover the damage received quickly after an attack. At level 1, even if a finger is dislocated, he'll be able to regenerate it in a flash, activated only when recovery energy is sufficient. Eartha congratulates him for achieving something so difficult and says that when it reaches a high level, he'll survive battles even with heart and brain injuries. But to him, it's a good skill and worth training for. Eartha seems so proud of him and asks if she's useful, and he says yes. But for now, he just needs 100 Class 2 monsters to meet the Novice Reaper requirement. The angel finds the requirement terrible, but believes he's the only one capable of fulfilling it. Yoo Ilhan notices the trolls are different. Before, they were resting in trees, but now, even tired, they're not sleeping. He even believes they might be trying to avenge their leader, but the creatures don't seem like the type that seeks revenge. However, Eartha simply asks him to finish everything. After that, for 2 days, the boy wandered through the dungeon hunting trolls but only managed to get 97. While cooking his meat, he comments that the number of creatures has decreased. Yoo Ilhan is still concerned about their strange behavior. He remembers when one said it didn't want to die despite being too lazy to run. The boy says it seems like they're being forced and even wonders if someone stronger is doing it. But Eartha says he eliminated the leader and that there shouldn't be another strong troll who could become one, and they consider the possibility of it being another monster. Either way, he decides to go back. Eartha agrees with the decision, saying there's no need to take unnecessary risks. After all, this isn't the only place with Class 2 monsters. But as they walk, the boy notices the path looks a bit different from before. Eartha tries to figure out the mystery. Then her eyes widen at the discovery. The exit has simply disappeared, trapping them inside. She panics, not knowing what happened for the exit to vanish and unable to communicate with the other angels. It's driving her crazy as she's never experienced anything like this before, and Yoo Ilhan just asks her to calm down. Then she considers a single possibility. This can only mean they are being abandoned by the world. The boy is unsure what that means. God watches over many worlds, and part of that is helping other living beings when they are in danger. But sometimes the monsters grow too powerful and wipe out an entire species, and the survivors begin to eat each other. With that, the future of that world is gone, and the heavens abandon the place. She reveals that she can't communicate with other angels in an abandoned world because all connections with the heavens are cut. However, Yoo Ilhan says they are in a dungeon on Earth, and she says that's what it may appear to be. The boy's eyes widen when he realizes something. Everything happens so fast when he shouts to Eartha and grabs her with his hand, protecting her from being fatally struck. The two fall to the ground with Yoo Ilhan shielding the angel. A sinister hooded creature with a scythe appears in search of a new record. The new unregistered creature is a mutation that appeared as a result of monsters eating one another and evolving. Eartha is unable to predict its patterns and asks the boy to be careful. The monster attacks again and he narrowly dodges. Yoo Ilhan realizes it's stronger than the troll leader from the Highlands, but even so, he's confident he will defeat the monster, because even if it's strong, it's still Class 3. Only now he remembers that the creature first attacked Eartha and wonders if it was his stealth skill that protected him. Desperate for her life, Eartha says she will offer a reward for saving a superior being. But for that, she begs him not to die, and her fear is visible. The monster attacks again, and as always, the boy dodges. It is in search of a record. However, Yoo Ilhan notices it only repeats the word records, and is curious about what it wants with them. With the pile bunker destroyed, all he has left as a weapon is his spear, and his armor serves only as a strong shield. The monster extends its hand, demanding that he hand everything over. Eartha warns that what the creature is doing is magic. A red cloud spreads across the ground beneath him. He jumps just in time to avoid being hurt by the spikes that were conjured. From above with his spear, it's Yoo Ilhan who intends to counterattack. With all his strength and determination, he aims his spear at it. He strikes it, causing a critical hit. However, it wasn't enough, and the level gap between them is nearly 100. Eartha says the damage the boy did was a miracle created by his skills and the greatness of his weapons. And once again, the monster demands he hand over his record, dodging a few more blows. Finally, Yoo Ilhan finds a chance to attack the creature. However, the monster uses its scythe to block the spear from piercing it. The Reaper finds the boy strong and demands the record once again. Annoyed, the boy tells it to shut up. With another strike, the monster dodges. An explosion happens near Yoo Ilhan. It ends up destroying a small part of his armor. His concern is that the equipment will break. It won't last long. A magical light surrounds the monster's hand as it says he's about to learn what true mana is. The magic spreads through the entire spear. Then he throws it at Yoo Ilhan, who narrowly avoids being hit. It's at that moment that the boy runs toward the monster, delivering a blow that hits the monster's face. Both he and Eartha are shocked by what they see, because they discover there are spikes instead. Even Eartha can't believe it. One of the spikes hits his shoulder, and Yoo Ilhan is nearly crying from the pain. Then Eartha notices something that frightens her. The wound is darkening and she believes it's a curse. Not even his extreme poison resistance can fight it. Thinking for a moment longer, Eartha flies off. Seeing this, Yoo Ilhan calls out to her. She replies that it's hard to react when the Angel of Death is following and would rather not be there. Then he tells her to go take a walk. Her only request is that he doesn't die. Back in battle, Yoo Ilhan once again manages to dodge. However, he feels he's lost a sensation in his arm. Despite the dangerous situation, strangely, he doesn't feel desperate. Eartha is searching for a secondary path without cost. She thinks that if a creature hadn't weakened its power on Earth, she would have been defenseless. Right now is not the time for her to think about the creature, but to hurry. Besides, she wouldn't have escaped if this were an abandoned world. Eartha just wants Yoo Ilhan to wait while she looks for a solution. Meanwhile, Hajin is confused that the escape scroll isn't working. Yuna asks if it's defective, remembering that the exit also disappeared. The girls notice something coming quickly. Then a green lightning bolt crashes to the ground, and it's Eartha, who fell like a meteor. She calls out to the angel Patha. Nearly out of breath, she says she's there to collect the debt they owe for the previous help. Yoo Ilhan's mask is almost completely destroyed, and the monster asks how he's still standing. It asks again while raising its scything, but Yoo Ilhan tells it to stop asking so much. Frustrated, he says it's been 2 months since humans returned, and he can't believe he endured 1,000 years just to last this little time. That gives him enough strength to fight, and as he attacks, he has no thought of losing the battle here. However, even while attacking, he ends up falling to the ground. Yoo Ilhan can't even move his fingers. The monster has him in its sights and says it's time for the end, but he can't die. He remembers Eartha asking him to stay alive, the image of Yuna hoping they'll meet again. The mornings when he has coffee with his parents. Yoo Ilhan still has many things he wants to do and still needs to reunite with Rita. He calls out for his beloved Rita. The monster raises its scythe and strikes at Yoo Ilhan. The impact causes an explosion of light that prevents anything from being seen. However, it only strikes the ground and doesn't understand what happened. Yoo Ilhan is far away from the impact zone. The monster looks at him lying there. It's Yuna who asks if they arrived too late. Surrounded by lights, she asks for him to be helped. Through his miracle, his recovery occurs from both paths. His armor is completely destroyed, but as he is surrounded by a faint light, his wounds begin to disappear, as well as the curse vanishing. For the boy, that is enough. This angers the monster, which charges at Yoo Ilhan, but now recovered, he easily dodges. The creature stares at him in a sinister way. The boy doesn't like the way he's being looked at. Still, he's recovered. If they hadn't arrived in time, he would have been eliminated. Heijin, watching the battle, asks how a demon could do something like that. Then Yuna tells him to get into a defensive position. He asks why he should do that until the girl says the reason is the monster that's coming. The paladin uses his shield to defend himself, but says he's not capable of fighting the creature. With her divine power, the girl asks for the blessing to enter Heijin. It comes just in time for him to be struck. The only consequence is being pushed backward. Even he is surprised that it worked, and Paitha says he is capable of fighting something like this. Eartha observes the girl, wondering what kind of being she is to heal Yoo Ilhan so quickly and still do something against the monster. She flies to the boy, who is recovered. She asks if he's okay, and the boy confirms. The angel says that for now, he needs a bit of time. Yoo Ilhan turns to the paladin and asks how long he can hold the fight. This scares Heijin, who fears he really intends to leave him fighting alone. But Yoo Ilhan needs to buy some time. And thinking it over, the paladin says that with Yuna's help, he can hold out for 30 seconds. That time is enough for him. Meanwhile, Heijin endures the fight, always protected by Yuna's blessings. Worried about her charge, Paitha says that at this rate, she might end up dying, and if that happens, she'll blame Heijin for the rest of her life. Eartha simply asks her not to worry, as they're just buying time and she should trust Yoo Ilhan. The paladin remains resilient against the blows. Meanwhile, in another part of the dungeon, trolls are walking through the area. One of them has a strange feeling that something is coming, but they are quickly eliminated by Yoo Ilhan. Meanwhile, Paitha questions why the boy went to hunt trolls at that exact moment. Then Eartha explains that it was necessary for him to level up and thus become fully recovered. With the requirement completed, he becomes the Novice Reaper. With that, he gains a 10% increase in stealth and 30% in attack power and critical hit when attacking enemies. His attack power can increase by 20% when his life is at risk. And with all the records accumulated, the boy reaches level 53. He is now fully recovered and gains the passive skill Death Collection, which increases each time he eliminates one. The boy runs, needing just 10 more seconds. Stones and red liquid are scattered everywhere. Meanwhile, Heijin is wounded in the shoulder, reaching his limit and having no idea how he will fight alone. The monster calls the paladin weak, and Yuna, now acting as protector, prays to the goddess not to let Heijin be defeated. Another blow lands, breaking the shield. The paladin falls to the ground and Yuna runs to him. Even with her guardian angel shouting at her, she kneels beside him as the monster threatens to bring their end. The girl says she will give him what he deserves. Her hand begins to glow intensely. A magic circle is conjured, and she fires a powerful blast at him. It even surprises Eartha, who questions if humans can really win, and Paitha says the girl will be the savior of humanity. Despite the damage, Yuna knows it won't last long. She asks Heijin to get up, but his body doesn't respond. The creature gets closer and closer to them. There is fear in the girl's eyes, knowing this is the end. Suddenly, a voice announces that the team is back. The team status appears, loading information about a new member. Then they realize that Yoo Ilhan has returned. The boy asks them to stay quiet so the monster doesn't notice his stealth. The Reaper monster is ready, and that makes Heijin fear for his life. Confident, Yoo Ilhan thanks them for the help and says that from now on, he'll take care of the rest. The moment Heijin saw Yoo Ilhan's spear, he knew he'd make it out alive. So he sighs in relief as Yuna tends to him. But never before had he considered himself a weak person. Still, he feels relieved the moment the boy appeared. The creature detects a new record. However, it can't recognize the powerful presence of Yoo Ilhan. The boy activates his strength skill, and with his spear raised, his arm muscle strengthens for the attack. And then he charges at the monster, declaring that its end is near. His strike causes a critical hit, and the creature is thrown to the ground in a burst of light. Yoo Ilhan's gaze changes. Finally, the true face of the monster is revealed. It's a severely wounded woman, and the only thing she does is thank the boy. Then he simply delivers the final blow, Upon elimination, he gains 31,969,409 XP and reaches level 55. Other stat points are distributed: 4 to strength and 2 to agility, power, and magic power. In the end, the boy understands that he freed the woman from a curse, and that it's also the first time he's gained 10 million XP. He receives the record of Lita Karha level 157, and the Death Collection is activated for saving Lita Karha from having her life force absorbed. The couple runs over to him worried, and Mayuna says that thanks to him, they leveled up and regained physical strength, but their concern for Yoo Ilhan disappears when they look at the monster. Haejin says it's a powerful type and that he hasn't seen anything like it in 10 years. From his bag, he pulls out a knife and a cleaver, then says he must finish the job. But Eartha doesn't allow it and asks if he's really going to kill her right now. And obviously he says yes, since he thinks it's a monster. Even though she screams that she's human, he doesn't even listen. Saying he doesn't intend to leave it unanswered, Yoo Ilhan considers that her skin and bones must be tough and might contain mana stones. His attitude shocks even a superior being. But he doesn't have time to do anything, because the body turns into ashes. On the ground, the boy laments not having been able to do anything. However, Eartha, in disbelief, says that it was a breaker. Laughing, Yoo Ilhan asks what that genius name means. His pride stops him from asking directly. Eartha says that those who had both the Philosopher's Stone and the Mana Stone from monsters are called breakers, and when they die, they turn into ashes. And so he understands that the creature was indeed not a monster. The woman was an intelligent race like the elves, but a human. Yoo Ilhan looks at the cloak and says she's gone. But that doesn't mean she left nothing behind, and from it, he pulls out a huge stone, as well as the armor and weapons she used. Paitha comes flying happy, bringing the news that the dungeon exit is open. Knowing this, Eartha says their abilities have also been restored, and the green-haired angel says the Reaper monster seemed like it wanted to say something. And Eartha regrets that they didn't hear anything from her own mouth while staring at Yoo Ilhan. Startled, the boy asks why she's looking at him like that and if she thinks it's his fault. Jokingly, she says she was just looking because he's handsome. That makes him proud, saying he really is and there's nothing he can do about it. Even with the defeat of that being, Eartha is still worried that nothing has really been resolved. Some superior being controlled the forces of the mysterious dungeon, as well as a breaker who arrived on Earth, even if their arrival is unlikely. And then, an abandoned world. No idea what's happening on Earth, but she's sure they will win, and that Yoo Ilhan survived magnificently. In the end, the boy's smile is charming. Haejin thanks him for being saved, and Yoo Ilhan says that if he hadn't shown up at the right moment, he would have been struck. But the paladin says the help he received was greater, as they wouldn't have escaped the dungeon otherwise. With little choice, Yoo Ilhan accepts. He seems a bit hesitant, but then asks if he can at least keep the stone. Haejin held the air in his lungs, then sighed in relief that it was just that, agreeing, which made Yoo Ilhan happy. Then Mayuna appears and suggests that instead, he could give her his phone number. And obviously, the answer was another no. She tells Haejin that once again she was rejected even with all her advantages. Yoo Ilhan thinks the girl is really beautiful like an angel, but even so, he needs to decline. Trying something else, the girl at least asks him to tell her his name, but Yoo Ilhan says she doesn't need to know that. With big sparkling eyes, she begs him to tell her, and the boy tries to escape the intense light coming from her, and finally says his name is Unique. Falling for the lie, Mayuna says it's a beautiful name. Bored, Haejin watches the scene, seeing the girl throw herself at someone for the first time. But worse than that is a man rejecting her so sincerely. But he realizes that neither of them follows the common logic of normal people. They are near the open portal. Suddenly, a tall shadow covers all of Yoo Ilhan's body. When the boy turns around, he sees a being even more superior. The being asks to be informed. Even Haejin and Mayuna are impressed by the angel. Eartha goes to her to fulfill the request, and the two move away to talk. Yoo Ilhan is curious if she's Eartha's boss because of her incredible presence. The angel calls out to him and says that for saving Eartha in a crisis, they will soon discuss the reward. So he agrees to sort it out after work since he wasn't expecting anything anyway. She says the matter is serious and that she'll need Eartha to hear the details. The angel says the dungeon will be temporarily sealed with the power of the heavens. 3 more angels appear to perform the sealing. Yoo Ilhan watches them and wonders if the dungeon will appear again in the future. He also wonders if maybe someone created the place and what the reason might be. However, it's not something he should worry about. He just needs to get stronger to survive. Yoo Ilhan is walking when that angel catches his attention. In the meantime, the warning is that entry is prohibited. She says that among many worlds, Earth is a place full of variables, and that in the future there will be more angels governing. And with a smile, she says that Rita told her she misses him very much. That definitely gets his attention. He wants to know what else his beloved said. The higher angel only wishes blessings for the future and says she will send Eartha as soon as they finish the matter. The boy watches her leave, regretting not being able to hear what he wanted. The most painful way to make someone suffer is to not finish what you were going to say. Haejin and Mayuna are at the airport. Then a limousine suddenly stops. The The dark window lowers, revealing Mireille, who gives them a welcome and wants to know if they completed the mission. While Nayuna is excited, Heijin says only Mireille is capable of asking that just moments after meeting again. Inside the vehicle, he says not to worry because it's been secured. Changing the subject, Mayuma excitedly says that their loot was taken and Mireille asks for more details. With the information that they met a Korean who uses a spear, Mireille even takes off her sunglasses to see better. Mayuna says it was a very strong person who even made Hajin scared, embarrassing the boy beside her. She knows they're talking about Yoo Ilhan, but then Hajin asks if she knows him, and Mireille denies it, saying it's the first time she's heard of him. Either way, he thanks her for securing a second job change and offers to buy everyone a drink. Using the elevator to his floor, Yoo Ilhan arrives home excited, but he doesn't find anyone. There's a note from his mother. In it, she explains she went to Yemen to buy seafood and will only return at night. That makes him think it's like going to another world to shop. Taking a refreshing bath, he reflects that his mother is stronger than he thought. Remembering the day his father said he had no talent for combat and she just said she likes going to Yasmin and that she has more talent than his father. Leaving the bathroom while drying off, he wonders if he should work until dinner. In his workshop, he dumps out everything he collected from the monsters. He has no spells to store them, so it would be a waste to throw everything away. He's busy cutting when something catches his attention. The eternal flame is even bigger, and Yoo Ilhan wonders if it also eats meat. That gives him a great solution. He's going to cook the meat there. Then he feeds the flame with all the meat possible. In the celestial realm, the angels discuss what happened in the mysterious dungeon. Mira says that Lita Karha revealed herself as an elf, an intelligent race from Daru. Some angels talk about it, wishing they had been born 500 years earlier and say Daru is abandoned, not believing how it could have appeared on Earth. Mira calls for order in the assembly. To organize things, she says she has only 2 questions. The first is why part of the abandoned world connected with a dungeon on Earth beyond time and space. And the second is why this phenomenon happened in a dungeon with destruction traps in the same location. Mira says that if it weren't for the intervention of humans, both Eartha and Paitha would be dead. She also says there was a possibility that the abandoned world and Earth would merge into one. But another angel interrupts. He says that only 2 months have passed since the cataclysm on Earth and doesn't believe that a human could have defeated a breaker. Paitha joins the discussion and says that Nayuma was also part of the fight, but he just mocks that and says the story sounds very suspicious and even accuses Yoo Ilhan of being behind what happened. Then it's Rita who speaks up, irritated, in the boy's defense. She says that both they and Yoo Ilhan became strong through hardship and that he's a good boy. The senior angel asks that someone who accompanied the boy clarify the doubts, and it's Eartha's turn to stand in his defense and say that he protected her and Paitha. The angel says that Yoo Ilhan's unusual abilities should have been reported many times, and Eartha says there was nothing wrong. Reluctantly, the accusing angel says it's still something to be looked into. Mira says no conclusions should be drawn to avoid consequences like more angels having to go to Earth. She also says that if God wants to resolve the situation on Earth, he will grant benefits to those with high growth. And like Eartha and Paitha, other guardian angels will be sent with humans to watch over Earth. After all, if the abandoned world and Earth connect, everything will spiral out of control. Some of the angels comment on not liking to get involved with inferior beings, finding such a connection strange. The assembly and everyone fly off to leave. However, Mira calls for Eartha and Rita. The meeting room would be empty, if not for the presence of the 4 angels. The angel says the reason they are there is to determine the reward that will be given to Yoo Ilhan since they know him. Rita is the first to speak, excitedly encouraging a reward that he will like, while Eartha suggests something that will be useful to help him. He listens to Rita and says that by God's will, the highest authority promises the highest level of reward. While Rita celebrates, Eartha is in disbelief. For her, it's hard to believe that the just and always neutral angel is making an exception. Mira says that God's will is to support him in order to balance Earth, and even if it's only for hunting, she believes that when they return to Earth with more than 7.4 billion returnees, for Eartha, the loser will be the one who feels that it will bring them closer to the center of everything. In his workshop, Yoo Ilhan is so focused on his work that only afterward does he realize he missed his mother's seafood dinner. Night has fallen and Yoo Ilhan is still in the same place. At his work table, he is proud of his new creation, a very destructive unique class metal bunker with 4 levels and an option to increase attack power by 40%, with a durability of 2,100. Yoo Ilhan knows that if he wants to keep using the weapon, he can't charge it to the max level or it won't withstand the durability. With this complete, he thinks about building some long-range weapons, already discarding bow and arrows and firearms, since in the worst-case scenario, they could be a problem. Then an idea comes to mind, and he really likes the idea of a propeller. The weapon has a hook at the tip, and a greater destructive power when it comes to long range, and combined with his skill, it will be perfection. Yoo Ilhan wastes no time in starting his new weapon. Soon he begins to work. However, he stops when he notices the cloak and scythe of the breaker. He didn't expect to use them, but it's an auction since he hasn't gone out much. The cloak increases stealth capacity by 20%, and having absorbed mana from darkness for a long time, now holds the power of the god of death. The scythe, on the other hand, has a high chance of being much better. But because of excessive use, it's worn out, so he decides to melt it down to make a spear. Yoo Ilhan throws it into the furnace, but nothing happens to the scythe, because not even the eternal flame can melt it. But the flame grows and fights to destroy the scythe. Something strange is happening, and the flame transforms into something larger and darker. Yoo Ilhan doesn't understand what's wrong. The flame is bigger and black. Either way, he grabs his spear in case he needs to defend himself. He asks the flame to keep fighting, and it seems to understand him well. A strange stone falls, leaving Yoo Ilhan alarmed at the strange situation. But at least all the darkness leaves the scythe, which soon begins to melt. He understands even less what happened, but at least it worked. Someone appears behind the boy without him noticing. One of them is Eartha, who's not too surprised to see him working, and the other is Rita, who came along. She is so proud of him. In the meantime, Yoo Ilhan has built a legendary spiked spear with 3,700 attack power and an option to increase damage by 70%. However, it's not completely finished. Looking at the material, the boy knows something is missing, and that's why he can't say it's done. Rita is still behind him without him noticing. Meanwhile, Yoo Ilhan is disappointed and says he did everything for nothing. But Rita says no, finally catching the boy's attention. When he turns and sees her in front of him, he's paralyzed in disbelief, thinking it might be an illusion. But the angel says she's really there, for real this time. He is speechless with what's happening. Rita runs into Yoo Ilhan's arms. Crying, she says it's only been 2 months, but for her, it felt like they were apart for over 100 years. Eartha watches the scene without much humor. Then the boy notices her there. With a smile, he thanks her for the good work, and she's relieved to be home. The three are gathered for coffee after the reunion. Yoo Ilhan says now he has to make 2 more cups of coffee, which is a good thing. This time it's Rita who's annoyed and says that after so long apart, that's the only thing he has to say to her. Then Eartha gets straight to the point and says that in heaven it was decided that no support will be spared to find out what is happening on Earth. He understands that after everything, not even heaven knows what happened. Eartha says it's likely to happen again. She thinks heaven is incompetent for not knowing the cause or how to prevent it, while Rita remains sulky because they're only talking about work. But Yoo Ilhan can only focus on what Eartha said, since in other times she would be screaming in anger. Very calmly, she says he is now an ally of heaven and therefore doesn't need to pretend, and besides, he saved her life. At this moment, his relationship with heaven has changed a lot. Smiling, he says he can already feel the effects like it's a reward. Jokingly, he says that as an option, she could put anti-corruption resources in the bag. Eartha seems annoyed, making him tremble in fear. But it's even more surprising when she asks if he can actually do that. They both go silent at what they just heard. Shocked, Yoo Ilhan asks if there's a hidden camera, and even Rita doesn't understand how Eartha believed that. However, Eartha says that what he did is enough to receive such a reward. The crossbody bag gains space expansion options, weight control, deterioration prevention, and weight transfer. But Eartha says that's not the full reward. Then she says to Rita that it's her turn. Whatever it is, it makes the boy turn red like a tomato, but she's ready to give him her reward. Rita approaches to grant him what he received from the gods. This makes him increasingly nervous. He keeps wondering what it could be. Seductively, she asks if he's ready, which makes him very excited for what he's about to receive. But his reward is that he can now access the subclass window. Yoo Ilhan goes pale, as if all the blood drained from his body. Teasing him, Eartha asks what happened. He accesses the window and sees an angel companion option, which leaves him not understanding what it's about. Eartha explains that it's a reward prepared to support him more actively and give him more strength, even though angel powers are limited. Excited, Rita says it's so he can work with her in the future, and Eartha reminds him that she'll be there too. But he simply says he doesn't need it. The two are in shock, unable to believe it. Yoo Ilhan says he can't believe they're there to help him in battle. Rita has tears in her eyes, and while admitting her terrible performance against the troll, Eartha defends her by saying she helped in many other situations. For a few seconds, he holds back his laughter. He laughs at their desperation, and says he was just joking, wanting to see their reaction because there's no way he wouldn't like it. Rita says he was really mean, totally catching her off guard, and Eartha says that in reality, it's not like she didn't want to stay with him. He returns to the blue interaction window, then clicks on the option to become companions with the angels. He can choose 2, and all abilities can increase by 30% when fighting the undead. And all mission rewards will increase by 30%. However, the skill has no levels and can only grow by meeting certain conditions. The ability to receive help from angels is activated. Fighting alone, he can borrow an angel's power depending on the skill. In the end, he adds Rita and Eartha. For him, it's like having a party since he can see their status. His eyes widen when he sees something. When it comes to the undead, the skill level increases by 30%. His eyes sparkle as he stares at them. He runs to hug them both, apologizing for the joke and saying they're a great help. Rita is very happy with the apology. So is Eartha, who accepts the hug even while getting flustered. Back at the window, he asks if the active skill really doesn't require training. Rita says they only need the angels, and the deeper the communication, the faster the skill will grow. That makes the boy suspicious that she wants to devour him. Eartha interrupts the romance between the two and says that either way he's already received the reward. She hopes they continue working together and excited for not seeing each other in so long. Rita suggests that they have some fun. Yoo Ilhan thinks it's a good idea, but first he needs to work on the windows, craft a harpoon, and still refine troll blood, leaving Rita in tears because he cares more about work. And Eartha can only think that when they finally reunite, they end up in a mourning drama and says the boy doesn't listen to her anymore. He is so focused on his work, thinking only about unlocking all the powers of the Reaper. Rita is surprised by his ability and tells Eartha that their Yoo Ilhan made a high-level man item without their help. Eartha says that's why Heaven gave him the mission, because he learns quickly. An astonishing energy comes from the weapon. The visible window of the Black Death Dragon is complete. Finally, the spear is ready, having all attributes increased. However, it can only be used by someone who possesses the power of the god of the undead. The description that catches his attention is the message. The Spear of Vengeance will always wait for the moment to separate the parts of a dragon's body. Shocked, Yoo Ilhan considers the possibility of a fight with a dragon. While evaluating the weapon, Rita asks if the original description was the same, and says it might be beyond the records. She says it's believed that Lidakara's original world was destroyed by a dragon, and thus her desire to defeat one and protect the world was born. Looking more closely at the spear, Yoo Ilhan says it's the result of great potential. Eartha says Lidakara didn't have much success, and Rita finds that cruel. But Rita wishes to one day say she's useful, since dragons are at least class 3, although she believes they should run away if they ever meet one. But Yoo Ilhan leaves her in doubt by saying she didn't understand the point. Turning to face her, he declares that the message is a prophecy. Both are shocked, and Eartha says there's no way around it. She'll have to face a dragon. Rita still doesn't seem to grasp the danger and watches the discussion between the two. Yoo Ilhan whines about having to fight while being weak, and Eartha says he'll manage. Then Rita asks why everyone is so worried. Even Eartha agrees that they have a long road ahead before reaching the dragon. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.